taking control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere. Watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, living the dream here. It's good to have you live along for the ride wherever you are on this great planet we call Earth. We are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here on the Great White North on this Friday night, early Saturday morning if you're on the East Coast. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. We do this thing every night of the week as we rock in and out of every show, thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. You can also check us out on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. Download this show and others from iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. If you want to take part in this show, because if you're new, we don't take phone calls. But what we do is we follow a bunch of chat rooms. You'll have to sign into one of the chat rooms on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, do me a favor, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I will get to your questions in there as well. If you haven't signed up on our website for the Spaced Out Radio SOR Space Travelers Club yet, it's time. It's $5 a month, and with that, your name gets entered into monthly prize draws, access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, you can read a plethora of information, including my blog. Check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest and weird news. And if you've had a weird sighting, occurrence that you can't explain, fill out the SOR Sightlines report. Researcher Mike Schmidt is ready to find out what's going on with you. We want to thank everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM and 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us tonight, today, tomorrow, in the morning, wherever you are on this planet. And remember, if you are a listener on Revolution Radio, it is the largest nonprofit online radio station going today. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. The chaos theory. What is it? And should we really care about it? Most of you are probably like me thinking, what the hell is this all about? But I'm going to tell you, there's something to this. Chaos theory details with nonlinear things that are effectively impossible to predict or control, like turbulence, weather, the stock market, our brain states, and so on. The phenomena are often described by fractal mathematics, which captures the infinite complexity of nature. Many natural objects exhibit fractal properties, including landscapes, clouds, trees, organs, rivers, you can name them. And many of these systems in which we live exhibit complex, chaotic behavior. Recognizing the chaotic, fractal nature of the world can give us new insight, power, and wisdom. Tonight, author and studious researcher Evan Kail joins SOR to talk about these theories, amongst others, like time warps, Bigfoot. We're going the distance with this fascinating topic tonight. Also joining me tonight is the SOR Space Wire's Eric Markham as my co-host. Eric, welcome into the show. Evan, thank you so much for being on Space Out Radio tonight. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Hey, let's draw a quick line in the sand here. I never said Bigfoot. I said cryptozoology. I'm not ruling out the existence of something like Bigfoot or a Gigantopithecus, but yeah, let's not put me on the Bigfoot train quite yet.
I'm putting you on there, damn it. I'm putting you on there.
Well, it's your show. I'll stand where you want me to.
Damn it.
We got to stick a little bell in my mouth.
We got professional Bigfoot researcher Evan Kail here with us. No.
Well, I'm about as professional as the rest of them, so
Yeah.
I guess I'll take that title. There's
Absolutely.
a doctor in there somewhere, too.
Oh, yes. Professional Dr. Evan Kail. Anyways, how you doing, my friend? Good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. Having a nice frigid night here in Minnesota. It's about 10 degrees out right now.
Oh, that's warm, man. That is warm.
Yeah, I
Compared to
suppose
where
you're
I
norther
am.
than I am.
I'm at right now, let's see, I think it was a balmy 10 degrees Fahrenheit today, and now that it's cooling down, I think we're supposed to get down to, oh goodness, I don't know, minus 15 Fahrenheit or something along those lines tonight.
I'll be joining you within a couple of weeks there.
Yes, you will.
It's been chaotic, and it's something that I've noticed because I've lived here my whole life with climate change. It's just crazy the way the weather behaves now. It was 60 degrees just a few weeks ago, and now it's on schedule to be below zero most of the winter. So it wasn't like that when I was a kid. It was stable, and now it just comes and goes. We had these crazy flash floods a couple of weeks ago that were just unprecedented. It never happens like that here.
My friend, I want to ask you right off the bat, because I always like to introduce our guests to our audience as they start to fill in for this live program. And that is, you are someone who has kind of your pulse on everything that is just on the fringe of everything. What made you interested in learning more, whether it's chaos theory, whether it's cryptids, whether it's time warps, time travel, whatever it is? Was it just a sci-fi kid growing up, or was it something that you had your own experience?
Well, no, actually, yeah, a lot of that stuff, I think that's pretty common with people like me. No, the bottom line is right now reason is under attack, and I'm a skeptic, I'm a scientist, I'm an empiricist, and I think that people who can see between the lines kind of need to rise up and speak their minds and say, with a scientific slant, how these terms are valid. So, for example, I'm an atheist. I was raised Jewish, but my coming to atheism, a discovery of science, it's really driven me and taught me to speak up, speak out, and be interested in things that I don't understand, like chaos theory.
I like the fact that you're a scientist, because we do a lot of paranormal on this show, and it just irks me at how cheaply people are throwing around the word science when it comes to these topics, whether it's the paranormal, whether it's cryptids, whether it's UFOs or anything like that. Does that offend you? Because I will tell you this. Eric Markham is a scientist as well, and I know it offends him. What do you take on that?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's just saturated with so much pseudoscience. A lot of, well, I guess you could say they're not even implausible topics. Like, they do have alien life. The universe is infinite. Clearly there's alien life somewhere else on the planet, but it's been so just muddied with all this crap and all this hoax and so much and so forth in Hollywood and everything else that, you know, we're left today with, luckily it's kind of starting to come around with the sharing of information on the internet, but it's been tainted essentially. And that's immediately why I said, don't rope me in with Bigfoot, because as soon as people hear that, they shut their brains off. Everything I have to say thereafter, they associate with Bigfoot, they associate with hoaxes, and I'm not worth listening to.
Oh, I love it. I love it. We're going to get along just fine tonight. Eric, how you doing?
Doing fine. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Do you like the fact that Evan's a scientist as well? And, I mean, I might as well just step away and allow you two to go at it on the scientific terms of everything.
Oh, yes, very much. Evan, for the audience, not too long ago, Dave asked me to start doing some scheduling. And I thought it would be fun. Evan was my first actual booked guest.
Yes, he was.
So I'm really happy to have him on tonight, and it'd be nice to have a fellow scientist to sort of run the subjects through our filters.
Let's backtrack here one moment. I'm going to edit the word scientist. That would imply that I have more formal schooling. I would say I'm an empiricist. I believe in the value of numbers and nothing more. Numbers never lie. So within that, yes, I am a scientist. I am a researcher, but I wouldn't go so far as to call myself a scientist. That implies I have a lab coat and a midget assistant, among other things. Working on getting that. Don't have it yet.
You don't have a midget assistant, Igor?
No. I'm not like I believe it was Copernicus had a midget assistant, or excuse me, a dwarf assistant. I'm using offensive terminology. Excuse me.
That's all right. My wife loves the midgets, man. When we went to Vegas last, she was so hell-bent on getting a picture with midget Elvis, and by God, we got one on the old strip. She was so excited.
Yeah, I got blown by one once.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
That's right. I have the word PG written on my hands. I had my palms turned.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about the chaos theory that you enjoy studying about?
Well, it's just the sheer complexity, the bafflement, the idea that, is there really an ultimate truth? Is there a destiny of our universe, or is it all chaos? Is it all just random numbers bouncing around? An endless matrix of zeros and ones, and this is something I go into in my book. Within that, you look at all these zeros and ones clashing all over the universe on a level that none of us can even fathom. And you have to wonder, does it add up to a sum? And would that sum then, in a sense, be destiny? Because that is basically, it's just one number. Or is it nothingness? Is it meaningless? Am I just essentially talking out of my ass right now? It's wild to think about either way. And it's something that is a subject of endless intrigue for me, something I think about all the time.
Well, either way, this is Eric, either way, it's unnerving. If
right.
It all boils down to one number, that would tend to put a prime mover in place, in my thought. And if it's all just chaos and randomness, that's just as scary. You did the book Ubered.
What?
And in our previous emails, you had said how Uber got you thinking about being an Uber driver had gotten you to think about chaos theory. Let's unwrap that a little bit.
Right. Well, I had a lot of time to think between rides, so, my mind kind of tended to wander. But basically, the thing with rideshare, this is the thing a lot of passengers don't understand, and this is the case with Lyft, its competitor as well. It's all based on proximity. These rides that you're getting, I can see somebody at the end of the block whipping out their phone, and they got this body language to them, so I can pick them out. They're ordering a ride, and there's an Uber car in front of me because I can see he's got the little meter thing up, and he'll get it before I do because he's closer. He's just maybe a few inches closer. He's still closer. And if he passes on it, then it goes to me. Now, I go and I either take that or I don't take that. If I don't take that, that hurts my score. That jeopardizes my job. I can lose my job if I don't take enough rides. So let's say I take it, I go, I pick up this person, they take me, say, 10 miles north. Well, whoever I meet after that and everything that happens after that, that is a direct consequence of that one action. And if I had done one thing slightly differently, the people that I would meet, I might be paired with someone completely different, and it would have unfolded to yield a completely different story. So I'm not going to give away the book because I'm trying to sell it here. But it created a puzzle piece. Like all of these rides that I went on, the book is exactly 1 year. And if one single thing had happened differently, if I had, after dropping somebody off, I had a rule where I parked within a mile of wherever I dropped them off. If after dropping them off, I had gone, say, left at the end of their street instead of going straight or right, everything could have been completely different. So it just, it's like you said, it's baffling to think about, and it's scary to think about, too.
It's like coming to the trousers of time where you go down one leg and completely different. Now, in chaos theory, does it suggest that the dimensions of the universe being infinite, there's a place where you decided to turn left, but you also turn, in another reality or the next membrane over, you turned the opposite direction and the story was completely different.
Exactly. It's like a stack of cards. You know, every instance of time, there is a stack that is unlimited high and limited low. And these are all the different realities. And every fragment of time conceivably has unlimited amounts of different realities. That's crazy to think about, to think that we're just living in one, and there's a number incomprehensible of other ones that are identical in the most minute ways, or completely different. There's ones where we don't exist. There's ones where just let your imagination run wild.
Yeah, I was just imagining looking back in my own life, I can see where key decisions got me where I am now. And all I would have had to done is, at the age of 18, decide to become a machine repairman in the Navy instead of an interior communications electrician. Everything would have been different from that point. I think we can look back on our lives and see key moments where if you went back and just altered that decision, your outcome would be completely different. And I mean, there's so many of those instances you could think of, but it's also incredibly unhealthy to try to live your life and think like that. Although with human, I do it a lot too. Yeah, you can't help but to think, wow, if I'd done this instead of that, where would I be now? But the fact is, we are where we are, and our reality is such that it is. So you can't allow yourself to get too caught up in that. I agree. I noticed, if you take reality and apply it to a Gaussian curve, what you're going to have is the extreme lefts and the extreme right tails of the probability curve. You know, nothing is impossible. It just, as you get out toward the ends, it gets increasingly less probable. So there's a point somewhere in the multiverse where I'm a rich rock star driving a Lamborghini, or I don't exist at all. And that always, we've had guests on that talk about how we're all connected. So, everything is everybody, which I'm not so sure I agree with that take. Where are you on that?
Well, this is kind of diving into some other stuff, but to put a face value on what you're asking, I think that life, the spark of life, is a physical, tangible property. It is something of immense complexity that human beings don't quite understand yet. It's on the lines of something like dark matter. And so in that, everything is connected. There's, if you will, there's a life force to this planet. It sounds a little hippie of me, but that's what I think. I
actually had a friend in college who tripped out, forgot what particular drug he was taking. He told me he was taking, but he said he saw this web connecting everything. And this is back in the 90s. Yeah, he wanted, knowing him, God only knows. He could have.
I don't mess with that stuff. I think I'm weird enough as is. I couldn't imagine my mind on something like DMT or acid.
Oh, I agree with you there. I don't know where I used to have weird enough visions just smoking a little weed.
Uh-huh.
Things like watching the waveform collapse into particles and just weird crap like that. When you so you're looking at this spark of life, this life force that connects everything. Kind of George Lucas of us both. I have that same view. Do you think there's a way to manipulate that? Like if you know it's there, can you massage it to where it works to your advantage? Like use the force loop, so to coin a phrase.
I have a fun theory I like to throw around, and it's not, I guess I don't even have a name for it, or even calling it a theory is too far. But, okay, so I was talking earlier, a system of zeros and ones, right? The universe, if you break down every single tangible thing in this universe and the way it physically behaves within this universe, you can get a number from that. It's a number that's crazy complex. So let's say, for all purpose sake, we have that number. Well, if we have that number, we can derive a formula from it and possibly use that to our advantage, whether it be predict the future or I don't know, say there's a perfect system of events. It's like our universe is a matrix, and you can plug in the right set of numbers to get whatever you want from it. Theoretically, I mean, something like that's possible. If the universe is a system of numbers, certainly injecting other numbers into it would yield numbers in your favor.
That's almost
right.
That almost has a matrix like
yeah, 100%.
Movie Matrix, yeah, feel to it.
So yeah, I mean, that's something wild to think about. Imagine if there was a phrase that I could tell a stranger, and if I knew that phrase, I could get them to do something, and that would set off a chain of events that would do something else, and I could do it intentionally. You know, by bumping shoulders with someone on the street, I could set off a chain of events that, I don't know, let's say gives me a winning lottery ticket.
Huh. If you figure that out, you've got my email, buddy.
Something tells me you'll never hear from me again if I figure that out.
Oh, it's like, whatever happened to Evan Kail? Last I knew, he was living a...
There's all these statues of him, and we all bow to him. It's strange. How did that happen?
I've been a big H.P. Lovecraft and Neil Gaiman reader all my life. And one of Neil Gaiman's, one of the things that came from his writing The Sandman was the power of dreams, and how if you could get enough people dreaming the same dream, you could flip-flop reality. In his case, it used to be cats ran the universe, or, ran the world, and a bunch of humans got tired of being used as playthings and grooming objects, so they all dreamed the reality where humans were in charge. Now, if you take into account all the multiplicity of the universe, could it be infinite to allow for these kind of flip-flops?
Yeah, theoretically. I mean, if you can jam open a doorway to one universe, you could do it to any untold number of others.
Even like in our reality right here and now, if enough people wanted to shift the paradigm by just say by thought, is the randomness of what we're calling chaos theory. It does the randomness of this. If it is completely random, it would suggest that there's no set direction for it to go. All possibilities are out there at any given time. Could a collective consciousness move it in a direction? Do you think a collective consciousness could move it toward an outcome? Say 10,000 people all want the rain to come, or there's a forest fire. Are we missing out by not trying to tune our reality?
Interesting. Okay. I have never thought of a collective consciousness being a manipulative force like that. So I guess I don't even have an answer for that. That's just something that's never entered my mind before. You want to expand on that a little bit, maybe?
Okay. Like you've heard of the Princeton egg experiment, where they have these random number generators all over the world. And in front of, I think one of the most notable events was 9/11. These things went from being random to developing a
collective.
pattern.
I have heard that. The 9/11
one. Like it was out there and people were picking it up before it happened. I posit that if enough of us were to have a goal in mind and focus on that goal instead of, randomly feeling that something was coming, we could make that come.
Well, trauma is a powerful thing, and the human mind is also a powerful thing. So perhaps activated by something powerful like trauma or extreme stress on a wide scale like that. I mean, there's never been, well, I guess there is now, but back then there had never been an event that was televised like that. So that's massive trauma all over the planet at once. So
right.
Perhaps, indeed, a collective consciousness can be detected like that, and who knows what powers it could yield.
Could it have been that Well, the Princeton eggs were actually picking up a disturbance before the events of night. It was almost like it was out there in the ether. People knew something was going on, but they didn't know what it was going to be. And then, of course, 9/11 happened, and the Princeton investigators say, well, that's the biggest thing that happened in front of this spike of the pattern with these eggs. I'm thinking maybe we could reverse that process, but not just pick it up out of the ether, but inject a will toward something, toward a specific outcome. Because if the chaos theory is just randomness, it seems like you should be able to direct it, if you understand what I mean.
The scale of cooperation that would require is something that is centuries away, at least, for a species, where in Moore's law in terms of technology, and that's speeding things up immensely in terms of globalization, but there's just so much... This is a far from perfect species, which is one of the reasons why I'm an atheist. I can't believe that people think that we're made in the image of perfection. That's ridiculous. But to collectively do something as big as have all of our minds linked up like that, like, we got to stop fighting each other, and that's just not going to happen anytime soon. So I would think we would sooner use technology implanted in our brains to be manipulating things in our favor than we would doing something like you're talking. I mean, this is like an Eastern versus Western medicine game. The Eastern thing, it's, very cool and has potential to be even greater than the Western medicine if it was ever mastered or ever properly done. But the Western way is quicker and more technologically and empirically driven. I'm giving a very abstract analogy there.
No, I get exactly what you're saying, because I remember seeing I think it was on Nova. The guy was heading over to China to study Chinese medicine. And one of the first things they did, it was almost like, let's pull this Yankee around by his nose until he gets tired and goes home. Because you got to wonder, did any of these guys that are making, these medicine masters, did any of them do the crap that they're trying to make this poor guy? They hand him like a 1 pound bag of rice and said, well, your first lesson is you roll this with your hand until you turn it into rice flour. Okay, come on now. But I know there is something to acupuncture, so that would follow.
Right.
I've seen
right.
that.
I'm super into chiropractics. I think chiropractors are miracle workers. Well, I shouldn't say miracle workers. They do a science. But there's people that call them witch doctors. And no, it's a different way of looking at health, but it is a way that is applicable and has health benefits. That's good medicine, textbook.
Right. Well, I think if from our primitive past, sometimes the witch doctor got it right, or the shaman got it right. And maybe you're dealing with small tribes. You got maybe 30, 40 people, maybe up to 100 in this little tribal group. Well, the first time the medicine man does some kind of chant, goes into the spirit realm as he says he's doing, blows some smoke over everybody, the patient gets better. Do you think that to a primitive society, well, you can actually see cases of that in modern society, but in a primitive non-scientific society, that belief, okay, now this shaman is nearly godlike to these people. Do you think that they're witnessing that, even though, say it was a random event, the guy just lucked out, the patient got better on his own, but now he has the belief of the entire tribe behind him? Could that fuel future successes?
Well, yeah, it's the placebo effect. There's studies where people drink water, but they're told it's vodka and they get drunk. And as soon as they're told you're drinking water, they go, oh, weird. And they snap out of it. The human mind's an incredible thing, and it believes what it wants to.
Right. But I'm saying if enough other people around this central figure believe. They don't say, well, it was just lucky. What he did didn't have anything to do with the patient getting better. But instead, they're like, oh, my God, he cured that. So I'm saying the belief of his followers would actually empower him in a way. Then you've got directed will, or there's a better term for it, but you've got this little knot of people focusing their energy on this one central healing figure. Does their belief by maybe give him the ability to be the healer? They believe, therefore he is.
Power of placebo.
Still placebo. Okay.
Still placebo. I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
Okay, let me jump onto my book because I can actually pull a quick thing out here. So I had this expensive car, and I would give out water, and I had this customer service voice, if you will, where a bit like I was like trying to be like the absolute best possible driver, and I had all these things going as power of suggestion, in that I figured even if people didn't like something about me because I was depending on a good rating for a job, I could get them to like me with it be my car, my service, whatever. And from there, the blanks would get filled in. Even if it was a bad experience, if I could roll this red carpet out the whole ride, I figured I was foolproof. And largely I was. So it's all powers of suggestion. I used to be able to get people to do things that would make me more money just by these subtle suggestions to them. Because the human mind just believes what it wants to believe. It's, it looks for things to comfort itself.
I read one of the articles written about your experience where you use a certain type of music in your vehicle.
Yeah.
And it had a calming effect on the people. I also like your comparison of the two driving companies that you had worked for. One was, you said one was Walmart, the other one was Target.
Yep.
As far as
Uber was Walmart and Lyft was Target.
Yeah. So with it, now I don't think we have too much Uber where I'm at because we've got a public transport system and all that.
I gotta tell you, Eric, my town doesn't even have a taxi cab service. That's how small we are.
Wow. So do you have Uber up there?
No, Uber won't come up here because they feel there's not enough opportunity for business.
Oh. So do they tend to concentrate on like larger
major cities? Yeah.
Is there a threshold, like a population threshold? I'm sure there's somebody crunching numbers there.
Even the small cities that it's in, it's all because it's in a small state, and they just look at I think it's like a 200,000 or 300,000 person population threshold at least.
Okay.
And generally, when they do get into those smaller areas like that, their territory is a lot wider. So in Minneapolis, it's only concentrated in the Minneapolis and surrounding areas. There's nowhere else, even though we have a couple other towns that have 100,000, 150,000 people. It's just not feasible for Ubers. Like, for example, Rochester, where the Mayo Clinic is, they could definitely start doing Uber or Lyft down there, but they don't. They only keep it here because there's just, with 100,000 people, it's just not enough.
So they're taking how many people there are in a given population, how many cars are in that population.
Yeah, I don't know that for a fact, but just looking, at least when I was a driver, it's been a couple months now, but that was the case when I was a driver. Now, however, what's going to be happening over the next 5 years is Uber's going to be, and Lyft probably too, switching to autonomous vehicles and cutting human drivers out. And so then I'm sure they will spread like a virus. It'll be everywhere.
Yeah, let's unwrap that a little bit. Have you had any experience with the autonomous vehicle? And would you, having been a driver, seeing what kind of crazy, chaotic crap happens when you're out there, do you think you could trust an autonomous car if it was the only one out there?
Absolutely. I think driving as it is right now is a public health hazard. The quicker it is done away with, the better. I understand that people enjoy driving. I am one of them. I love driving. But for the sake of safety, I want to see myself and everyone else with a license removed from the road and replaced with a robot, because naturally human beings are just really freaking bad at driving. Take it from me. I drove 100,000 miles or so in the course of just over a year. And if there's one thing I came to recognize is that people are just careless. You know, there's a term accident. An accident is rarely just that. The word accident implies that there's no fault, and there's always human error as a fault. Accident. Very rarely is it actually like some unnatural force, you know, the car just suddenly jerked because they hit a patch of black ice, something like that. No, it's people looking down at their cell phones, or they're drunk, or they're distracted, or just being human. You know, to be human is to exhibit error.
Yeah.
Versus machines by definition are perfection. They are numerical perfection. So will they be perfect at first? No, I don't think so. It'll probably take a while, and there's going to be a lot of lobbyism against it. It's a legal nightmare just to even think about, let alone an insurance nightmare. But Moore's Law, it'll get better. It'll hit a point where it is so much better than human drivers, and then it just won't make sense to have human drivers, because the whole point of an autonomous shift would be to shift all the cars to autonomous so they can work as one system, like a grid, like a matrix. It seems to be a theme today.
Okay, with Moore's Law, we're kind of running up into it. We're going to hit a barrier when we get.
Yeah, we'll be dead before then.
Oh, okay. You're not.
I'm half kidding, half not.
Yeah, I was just saying that there's a point where you can't get any faster than what we're doing, because once you get down on a quantum level, you start having interferences, and the physics that are on the pre-quantum level don't hold up once you get down there. That was one of the things that blew Niels Bohr's mind. You know, when he called Einstein in on this, it's like, you know, Albert, I think our observations are skewing by observing our experiment, we're skewing the result. Moore's Law is eventually going to hit that wall where you can't get much faster, much smaller, because there's physical limits.
I just read a book called Future Crimes, and in the book it dealt a lot with Moore's Law and how technology is basically allowing crime to hit these crazy, crazy levels that humanity's never seen before. But it said by about 2045, it was predicted that we would hit that barrier with Moore's Law, or that we'd be at this ridiculous level, and the next level would be something that would just possibly turn us to a Type 2 civilization.
Okay, so you're obviously, with your background, you've read of or heard of Kurzweil and his unity theory, that eventually we are going to merge and become cybernetic beings. Good or bad?
It actually might have been. You know, that theory actually might have been Kurzweil, now that I think about it. It's funny, I got out of Uber, and I took a contracting editing job at the University of Minnesota, where I got my degree from. And we used Kurzweil software. It's the software that converts PDFs of textbooks to audio for the blind. That was my job for a couple of months. A little side tangent. Anyway, I think that is inevitable. And I think that as far as securing longer lives for humanity, that's just the obvious next step, is biomechanics and cybernetics.
Do you think in that case, though, are we going to, once you get an implant, and say somebody like me with high blood pressure and diabetes can get an implant that takes that away, we're opening up a doorway to a whole new way of living. It's like no consequences, because you can go to the doctor, get an implant that's going to, whatever vice or whatever effects your particular vice have on you, you can go get an implant that's going to take that away or somehow mediate it. It could change, the way society is now, where there are consequences. Being cybernetic would remove a lot of those consequences. What do you think that would mean for the society in general?
Well, we'd have longer life expectancies, which means we would have to seriously figure out how we'd care for a exponentially larger generation of senior citizens. But also, it opens up all kinds of vulnerabilities that we've never really thought of. For example, say you have computer chips in your brain. Well, what if a hacker gets into your brain and causes you to, I don't know, murder somebody?
That was going to be a next question.
Yeah, and I think that's just I think it's just going to be an obvious side effect that comes with this development in technology is just these horrendous crimes that we've never thought of, because where there's a will, there's a way. There's evil people in the world. Like I said, our species is largely flawed. And as soon as the technology becomes available, it's going to be used counterproductively.
Yeah,
but that's just, devil's in the details. That's just the way it goes. Ultimately, it benefits our species to be living longer and having these incredible advancements in medicine and technology.
Mm-hmm. James, I'm going to hop in, or Eric, I'm going to hop in here for a second. Evan, a lot of people who are listening, when they hear your voice and hear your very upfront tone with everything, they may say that you are looking at the world very bleak, in a very dark tone. How would you react to that?
I mean, I'm kind of cynical, but it's just kind of because of my background.
But does that bother you that...
No.
Out of the research that you've done, because let's face it, there are a lot of people out there, Evan, who wear the rosy-colored sunglasses 24/7, 365. And when they hear someone like you who's actually broke it down, out of fear, they may automatically think that, man, that guy's negative, man, that guy is a ball of hate or has that black cloud hovering over him.
I mean, yeah, I guess I could kind of see that. I don't know. I'm kind of a realist, and this is kind of kind of a shitty world. However, I'm on this program right now, and I'm being expressive in my viewpoints because I want to have the benefit of the doubt. I want this species to improve. But when I turn on the TV, when I look on the internet, that's not what I see. That is so far from what I see. It's kind of appalling. So I guess just do better, humanity, and you'll put a smile on my face.
Yeah, I get that. We're just so close. I mean, it's got to be, and I think the technology is probably out there by now, where if you need a nuclear physicist, you pick a person that a certain age, certain type. I think we're almost going to have a technology-based caste system. Once this gets, certain people are going to be picked to go and get.
We already have a caste system. It's called wealth gap and capitalism, and I guess the wealth is just going to allow people to afford that. The first people getting these things are going to be rich people, and then that would put them at a crazy, crazy advantage over everyone who's non-cybernetic. Suddenly, you go from being vulnerable to being bulletproof.
Well, yeah, you're going to have it's like, oh, his father was a doctor, we'll make sure that he gets the doctor chip. And then
if it was offered to me right now, I would probably take some kind of experimental procedure to enhance me, like cybernetic or something like that. I think that would be incredible, and it's something that I would opt for because I'm pretty confident in technology.
Okay, but if we can get an implant that says, okay, after... Like in the Matrix, where you could be programmed to become a kung fu master with. Yeah,
well, I already am. I'm not.
Yeah, you already are.
Yeah. Black belt. I'm not a master, but I'm on my way to being one.
But okay, if we get to that point, then there's also the arts, the sciences. All facets of life are going to end up being programmable. Who gets to be the next? Eddie Van Halen or Joe Bonamassa. It won't be a matter of somebody who was gifted and practiced. It'll just be somebody who was chosen because they'll look good on stage with a guitar across their shoulder. Let's give him the guitar maestro chip. I think it's going. What I'm afraid of when unity happens, and when we become a cybernetic race. All free will is going to disappear.
Yeah, maybe, but I think that's kind of the ultimate bleak outlook on the direction we're heading. I mean, you could say we're already under something Orwellian right now with the surveillance programs, and it's only getting worse with the improvement of technology and surveillance. So just throwing more gas onto that fire in terms of technology isn't going to change anything. That's kind of possibly the direction we're heading already, or maybe it's not, because we're also at an unprecedented age of information sharing that we've never seen before.
True. But so much there again, you open up a can of worms there. If you say, okay, let's take somebody who believes in flying saucers. They can go to social media and find all the information in the world they want that bolsters their belief, whether it's true or not. And a lot of the crap that's out there is total Photoshop, CGI. But if you get somebody who wants to believe a certain way, all the information that is out there can give you this very knowledgeable person whose foundation of knowledge is BS. I think that's one of the drawbacks to having all this information out there. People aren't being taught critical thinking in schools. I have a recent college grad in my family who still can't spell with a bachelor's degree. How in the hell did that happen? So what you get all this information out there, good and bad, you're going to end up with a really interesting field of experts eventually. What's your take on that?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. To be honest, I was just checking out the Twitter feed. I wanted to see what was going on.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. You said I have kind of a serial killer voice. I wanted to see if anybody had said that, because I've actually gotten that before.
Oh.
No, not yet. All right. I guess it will be days before the FBI discovers me. Good. Gives me some time to gather my things.
Yeah. You got a chance to move.
Okay, I'm sorry, please resume. I didn't mean that.
Evan, it's Dave again, and I got a question from Gail in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gail is asking, Evan, what do you say about someone who believes in destiny then, rather than the numbers?
Okay. Rather than the numbers. Well, I would ultimately say you can't really differentiate the two, because destiny is a sum that is, okay, it's a number behind a curtain, but that number exists. The fact that number exists is a destiny. It is a path that reality is going down. So I don't really see a way to separate the numbers from that, because those numbers are yielding that final sum, and that, in its sense, is destiny. So to be honest, I don't know if I believe in destiny or not. It's something that I grapple with, because it could be either way, and to think about, again, either one, it's baffling.
So
I'm sorry I don't have a more detailed answer, but that would be my answer, is I can't really distinguish the two.
No. And I'll continue on here. We have a lot of people in this world who absolutely have the most brilliant luck. Everyone has that friend who everything they touch turns to gold. And it never seems like they're working very hard towards it, albeit maybe an athlete, maybe in finances. Whatever they do, it touches to gold, or it turns to gold. Yet you have this other crowd that hangs around who has this black cloud and drama all over them 24/7.
That one sounds like me.
Yes. So when you're discussing the whole chaos theory, and you're discussing the whole theory of limitations that people have, and their beliefs on what is real and what is not, how do you define the personal reactions that everyone is having on a different level?
Well, that's all based on a person's background. I mean, religion and theism has a lot to do with that. And like I said, I was raised Jewish. It just so happened that A, I had a bad experience with the congregation that I belonged to, and B, I got more into science, and I really started to question the nature of God. And then it just from there, it just completely shattered everything. And then, one thing led to another on the internet, and I started to stumble on a lot of these theories and ponder on them very heavily, and it's since influenced who I am today.
So would you say then, according to John's question on Twitter, that destiny doesn't really imply that you have no control over your future?
Oh man, it's just so. I don't even know where to begin on that one, just because it's so. How do you stop something that's coming at you and there's no dodging it? I mean, if destiny does exist, then you would just have to surrender yourself to it. But we can't see that because we don't have the answers. We don't know what the truth is. If time is not subjective, if time is non-linear, then this destiny, this final destination, if you will, it's already there. So you have to ask yourself, is there anything I can even do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of boils back to, is there a way to manipulate it? And who knows? It's, we're smart monkeys. It's beyond our understanding right now.
Mm-hmm. I like this point that John made on Twitter as well. He says, I don't think that humans were meant to live in large groups, number one, but he follows that up with, a group of people is only as smart as the dumbest one in the group. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because that's the way our American politics seem to be going. The dumbest one in the group is often the loudest, the one who can swindle everyone else and drag them down with them. And a lot of times that person ends up becoming the leader. So, yeah, even smart people are stupid. And when people get into groups, it can be dangerous. You get one person with one inflammatory idea, and they can spread it like a virus and turn the whole group into something that they weren't. Look at Nazi Germany.
Yes, I agree. I'm a student of history myself. It's a sideline. I'm eventually like to get a PhD in it, though I can't do anything with it, just for my own edification. But watching, I don't speak fluent enough German to follow what Hitler is saying without subtitles. But you turn those subtitles off, not even understanding that man's language, you can feel yourself he was very charismatic in the way he spoke and his gesturing, almost like psycholinguistics before psycholinguistics existed.
The mind believes that it wants to. They see somebody who's going to give them a new opportunity, who's animated, who's flamboyant, and the mind does the rest. And then you throw propaganda in the mix, and look how that turned out.
Do you think it's that simple, though? I mean, the mind believes what it wants to believe, but there's got to be a point where the mind says, whoa, putting people on cattle cars and gassing them is wrong no matter who you are. How did he manage to get these people to follow along?
Well, it's not that simple, but World War II was far from a simple thing. It was a highly, highly complex string of events that it was the perfect storm. And people threw themselves away with it. And just this sweeping insanity took the whole planet, really. I mean, there were a lot of atrocities on both. Okay, what am I saying? Let me backtrack here because I almost walked myself into something that it was not of my opinion. World War II, like I said, it was incredibly, incredibly complex, and just a lot of misguided ideas got put into it. And it's an example of what can happen under the wrong circumstances.
Now, is that a case where the randomness that was out there, say, got congealed and sent down a path? It seems to me
possibly. Hitler was almost killed in World War I. He was a prisoner of war. Imagine if they'd simply just killed him.
But don't you think, with what happened in post-World War I Germany, the treaty that Germany was forced to sign, let's get a little political here, was so punitive. It wasn't like you lost, lick your wounds, let's all get along now. It was like, we're going to make you bastards pay. If Hitler was not, say Hitler had been drowned as a baby, or if Hitler did not exist, do you think, just out of that quantum foam of probabilities for that time, somebody would have stepped into that role? There would have been a Hitler or a Hitler-like figure at that era of time whether Hitler
I
had
would say
been,
probably.
you think that just would have been somebody
But
would have stepped in to fill that void that was needed.
But the man in the moment happened to be the worst possible choice in that he was the one capable of unleashing hell and sweeping Germany and turning the whole world upside down. You know, if somebody else had risen from his conservative viewpoints, perhaps it may have been someone who was less charismatic, who wouldn't have sparked the war, or maybe drawn it out or done something else. But like I said, man in the moment, that's the way history went down.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you both to hold on. We're going to get ready to hop out for our first break here. Our guest tonight on Space Out Radio, Evan Kail. We're talking the chaos theory. Some very radical thinking here tonight on the mighty SOR, and I love it. We've never really gone down this road before, and it is lighting things up in the chat rooms. Keep it going, space travelers. You're doing very well in Twitter. We are very active with you tonight as well. Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries, so tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Revealette Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, revealetteR&R.wix.com/Revealette
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride as we wrap up another weekend here on the mighty SOR. Coming into Uncle Jimbo's cabin tomorrow night and Sunday, Elizabeth Anglin and James Tyson with Spaced Out Weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun with them in the hot seat, and I will be back on Monday night with Eric Ouellette talking paranormal science, if there is such a thing. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time is when we get going on every episode of this show. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, it is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. If you're tuned in on United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 160 countries around the world, thank you for making us part of your night, your morning, your afternoon, wherever you are. It's good to have you with us as well. In the SOR Space Travelers Club, Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight, polyphenoprogenitive. I don't know what the hell it is. Polyphenoprogenitive is your password. I'm not going there again, Bill, but if you're a space traveler, you know what to do with the nightly password, so use it wisely. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you. I highly suggest you check it out. And by the way, join the SOR Space Travelers Club. It equals out to like $5 a month, and we want to give you some swag, so make sure you sign up today. Tonight we are talking about the chaos theory and much more. Tonight's guest is Evan Kail. He is just a very, very smart gentleman when it comes to this theory and the theories on what makes the world turn. We are also joined by Eric Markham from the SOR Space Wire. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Hello.
Good to be back.
Anytime, my friend, anytime. When you look
I found some much-needed positivity over the break.
Well, you know what? It's one of those things, man. That's why we kind of let it roll the way it does, because we never know where it's going to go on this show, and that's why I love doing it. And we want to say, if you are following on Twitter, make sure you use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. So that way we could get your questions in. Type your questions in capital letters so I could get them to our guest as well. That would be much appreciated if you don't mind. Evan, when we are talking about the chaos theory and how it affects people on a daily basis with their lives, with their financial system, with their friends, is there anything that this doesn't affect in your mind?
No, it's like the weather. It's all-encompassing. It's all around us. And I'm going to keep bouncing back to this because this is the one thing that really drives me with this theory. If the universe is a set of numbers, if every data-significant feature could be broken down to numbers, it is a sea of numbers that is everywhere, and to simply exist in any form is to adhere to that. And so, therefore, it is something that is inescapable unless you somehow created a matterless void, but even still, you are part of the system of numbers, and that you are an absence of it, excuse me. So, no escaping it. It's all around us.
Wow, that made me think along a different line altogether. Let's get back to your book. I'd like you to unwind that a little bit for our listeners. Let's generate some interest here. Okay, I have thought of doing the Uber thing myself because I haven't. Don't do it. After I read your interview with that one of the correspondents, I was like, I don't think I'll do that. But it was, I worked 7 days on, 7 days off. And I thought, well, I could do that.
I worked 7 days on and then 7 more days, and then a year went by, and then another 10 months went by, and then I got put out of business.
Okay, let's unwrap that a little bit. How'd you,
why don't we back it up, and I'll tell you guys the whole shebang for how I got into it, the quick Cliff Notes version. So I was pursuing screenwriting, and this is something that I've been doing since I was in college. I taught myself how to do it, and it became this obsession that took over my life. I was hell-bent on making this screenwriting career happen. So I got a degree from a good school. I majored in Japanese studies because I predicted, and I still predict, that the future of Hollywood is going to be Japanese cartoon adaptations. So I figured I'd be aligning myself with what I saw to be a future trend, and also was allowing myself when I was in school to be working a lot on my screenplays, because the Japanese thing, believe it or not, it wasn't too hard. Most of my classes were in history. I had a couple language courses, but once you figure out the language, it's not that hard. So I was doing that for years. I graduated. I just kept doing these entrepreneurial side gigs and all my efforts going into writing. And then suddenly Uber shows up in town here in Minneapolis, and this was in November of 2014. And I got a ride one night from this guy in a nice car came in to pick me up, and he was telling me about it. And it just, this idea of being able to be my own boss and roll around and have all this time to work on my writing between rides, and it just seemed like this great opportunity. So I have a riches to rags background. My parents were very wealthy when I was growing up. They lost everything in 2008, but they gave me a sports car when I was 16, and I held on to that car because it was like the one place I could go where just pretend like this terrible reality I was living was a dream. So I held on to this car as it fell into disrepair, and it didn't qualify for Uber. So I took it to a car dealership, a BMW dealership. The sports car was a Z3, and I found a 5 Series, a used one, with $16,000. And I used the sports car that I had the title to as a down payment, and I financed the difference. I walked out of the dealership with like $15,000 in debt or something. And so I met up with, at first, a Lyft recruiter. You have to meet up with a physical person to do Lyft. I didn't want to do Uber because I heard so much bad press about them. And this just became my full-time job. But about 3 weeks into driving for Lyft, I was working like 60 hours a week because it was like it just couldn't stand up to Uber. Most of the calls were coming through on Uber. And so one night, I got a ride from this guy to a hotel. I was taking him to another hotel, and I asked him what he does, and he says, I work for Uber. I turn around and look, I'm like, but you're in a Lyft car. He goes, yeah, I like to scope out the competition. Tell me, how's Lyft treating you? How's it working? And it's just like like I was like really getting worried about this financial strain that I was under because I had just taken out this car loan, and like this business was not going to be possible to run with just Lyft. So I told him, and he hands me a card, and he goes, sign up with Uber, you get a bonus, yada, yada. Well, I ended up doing it, and from there, most of my trips were done through Uber. But it became this incredible journey. 2 weeks into doing this, before I picked up the Uber passenger, I realized that there was something really special that I was witnessing, and so I started keeping a diary. And I started making up all these rules to make the story better because I thought in the back of my mind, oh, maybe I'll write a book about this. So, for example, one of these rules was if you invited me into your house after the ride, I had to say yes. I couldn't say no. And that led to some really freaking weird situations. It ended when I went into this guy's house and he pointed a gun at me. He let me leave. But, I kind of reevaluated my rule after that. And I just worked these late hours and engaged with people and was witness to all kinds of crazy scenarios and twisted relationships and people's dark, deepest secrets. They just start talking to me. I should clarify also, I mainly work late at night. It's really cool driving around Minnesota late at night because there's nobody out. So you feel like you're king of the road. And when you're rolling around in a nice BMW like that, and I was 25 at the time, it was this incredible journey that I was on. So yeah, that's basically the story in a nutshell. Now, where it gets interesting is, like I said, chaos theory is a big theme of the book, and it's something I thought about a lot because these rides, these people that I were meeting, this adventure that I was having, it was all based on random chance, and everything that happened, it seemed to be happening for a reason, and it just blows me away to think that possibly it was destiny. Perhaps it was all meant to happen. Everything that I did, maybe it was all pre-orchestrated, or maybe it wasn't.
Okay, I can understand that. You pick up fare A instead of fare B, or like you said, the guy parked ahead of you gets the ride, right. You don't, so you get the next. Did you start to see a pattern, some kind of out of all this? What was the pattern you were seeing? Did anything come out to you as a certain? Yeah.
I told people because I got these freaking same questions over and over and over again. It was one of the hardest parts of doing the job was having to answer these same line of questions, usually in the same order, over and over again. And one of the biggest ones was, "What's it like?" And I would tell people it's like a reality show and a sociology experiment all wrapped into one. I got to the point where I knew exactly how a ride was going to go down, minute by minute, just based on a person's rating and where they were calling from, because people exhibit these mimicking behaviors, and people are just predictable. Now, sometimes I was pleasantly surprised, but it was far and few between.
Oh, the predictability. Do you think that they were? Was that because you're in a? Okay. Thanks a lot to. Like the Prairie Home Companion and Garrison Keillor, people have an idea of what Minnesotans are like. Do you think that the predictability of what you were encountering is because... Do you think you would have had the same thing going if, say, you had been an Uber driver in Atlanta? Completely different population.
Probably would have been different. One thing, so I don't fit in very well in this state. I'm sure many of the listeners could gather that by now. I'm one of those weird guys, and it's people sometimes they just don't know what to do with me. I call them type B Minnesota nice because a lot of people here, they're boring, they're reserved, they're not exotic, they're just not exotic personalities, and they can't handle anything that is askew from normality. So, the Minnesota nice thing definitely it got to me, and it was something I observed quite a lot. People who, they can't express exactly what's on their mind. They want to beat around the bush. They want to be passive-aggressive. Oh, yeah, don't you know, let's talk about the weather. No, let's just not talk at all.
Okay, now, if I understand right, you have to garner it's not enough to get them from point A to point B. You have to get them to point A to point B and get a good rating out of them.
Yeah.
So how did you have to cope with type B, polite, uptight, conservative in your car?
I lied. They asked me who I was, and I told them I was someone else. I mean, I'm gay. A lot of these people are, well, let me put it this way. They don't exactly have the kindest mindset, and they would ask about, Like, oh, you got a girlfriend? And it's like, oh, fuck, I don't want to go down this road with you. So it's like, yeah, you know what, I do. Oh, where'd you meet her? We met at school. Where'd you go? The university. What'd you study? English. Like, just, I'm going to give you one word, really simple, really basic answers, and paint a bleak, boring picture of my life because it's just not worth diving into. It's not worth cracking open the Minnesota shell because I knew it was going to just yield me a bad rating and make for awkward conversation, which ultimately jeopardized my job.
Okay, what now? When they couldn't all been bad, so you get somebody in there that may be out of town or just somebody more like yourself, more of a free thinker, not really caught up in that mold.
They were far from bad. Maybe this is just my cynicism bleeding through my words, but like the majority of people were fine. I mean, the animals that I dealt with, they were really bad, and usually alcohol was the factor there. But it's a mindset, and that passiveness, that reservedness, it created a barrier for me. So, I would just, the mind hears what it wants to hear. I would feed them what I knew would please them if I knew that they were going to be like the type B Minnesota nice personality. Because I had been through the interaction so many times and had just like so many like awkward interactions, like trying to like talk to people who I knew were just on a completely different spectrum from me. That I just simplified it for myself.
Well, did you try and entertain yourself a little bit? Was like, okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see how good of a spin I can put on this, or how I can run them down the primrose path.
Yeah. You'll feed them things, you'll tell them things, you'll say things to, I could usually see when like a fight was about to spark, and sometimes I didn't want to listen to it, but other times I did. So I might say something where I know like the guy will laugh and the girl will not. And that'll set it off. Something along those lines is always entertaining when I was in a bad mood.
Huh. Did you find yourself actually making interactions between these people? It's like, okay, would you try to get you don't really want these people fighting in your car, but would you try to maybe?
I usually stayed out. Like there was one time I picked up these two girls. This is a story in the book. And they were like in the heat of an argument when they got in the car. And this is the thing with people. Sometimes they would be in mid-conversation when they entered the car. And like I'm driving to this destination that's maybe like 8 miles away. And I'm just not talking because these two are really going at it. This friendship is dissolving. And then one of them plays the trust fund baby card on the other. And I just, God, I think I audibly went, oh. So it exploded from there. And finally, I get into this address, and like I turn around and just kind of sheepishly go, "Ladies, we're here." And the girl looks, and she goes, "What? This isn't the right. How stupid are you? You took us to the wrong house." One of them entered in the wrong address, and they were so busy arguing they didn't notice. And so then, all of their fight, like all of their anger that had been boiling in the car, it all came down on me. And so both of these two just lit into me for like the next 4 miles to their house. And when they got out of the car, they were friends again.
Because they had a common enemy at that point, so they forgot. I
joked they were the lionesses, and I was the gazelle, which they tore to slaughter for sport.
How often does stuff like
in the book?
How often would someone? And of course, after a while, you get to realize that this is going to happen. Did you?
Yeah. It was like a nightly occurrence.
Did you figure out like, okay, a way of saying, okay, we're going blah, blah, a way to throw the destination out there in such a way to get them maybe distracted a moment or just to avoid being the gazelle that got slaughtered? Or did you just let that take its course?
No, I made a point after that because that wasn't the only time that happened where I accidentally took someone to the wrong place. It happened a few other times, and that's just plain bad customer service. So I made it a point to say, hey, we're going to, street intersections. I wouldn't rattle off the exact address, but that usually clarified it. And then, I always had like backseat drivers, even though I had my phone navigation. Like I clearly don't need your help navigating, but you have people where I call it tiny dick syndrome or TDS. They insist on taking their way, the less efficient way that is either going to get us lost or take longer.
Okay, how do you deal with the TDS syndrome? Do you just go along with them, or do you stay firm and say...
golden rule of customer service. Customer's always right. Even if they're wrong, they're right.
Okay, so you just had to grin and bear it there. What's the low point? Let's go with your worst ride ever, and let's contrast it with that one that you thought, wow, I'll remember this person until I'm 100 years old. Let's go with
I can actually very, very easily pull those two out. The absolute worst ride ever. Oh, actually, it's kind of a coin toss. I'll go with the one in the book, because there's another one that happened after the book. That's another story for another time. So I picked up this guy. His name was Garrett. He was on Lyft, and passengers on Lyft were always better than passengers on Uber. So when a Lyft passenger had a rating below 4.8, it suggested that there was something wrong with them. So I pulled up. This guy was a 4.6, and I'm waiting. And there's like this bang at the window, and I look, and there's just this like sluttily dressed girl. She's got like a red dress on and nothing else, and she's got this like pitch black hair. She looks like a succubus. She leans in the car. She goes, "You here for Garrett?" I'm like, "Yes." Sure. "Wait right here." And everyone's going, "No, bitch." So she comes out with this guy, and she's like leading him out like a shepherd leading a lamb. I mean, this guy is all over the place, and she throws him in the car, and she gets on him, and she straddles him. And usually people, when they were together, they had like good-looking people were with good-looking people, and bad-looking people vice versa. It's just kind of how human sexual relation tends to go. Or if that wasn't the case, then somebody was moneyed. So this guy is definitely not moneyed, but he's with a girl who is like infinitely better looking than him, and I'm trying to figure this one out. So I turn around and I say hello to them, and I offer them water, because I did this with everyone. It was a ploy to get a tip, and they look at me like I offered to poison them. I'm like, "I'm sorry." Like, here, like I handed them the water, and I said, "Okay, we're going to. This is like 15 miles away in St. Paul. Whatever, just drive," says the girl. The guy's not looking at me. He has yet to even acknowledge me. Okay, so we pull off and we're driving towards the highway, and I have a condition called misophonia, which is a hatred of sound. It's not that rare. It's like they estimate upwards of 10% of people have it. It's a neurological condition where the sounds of breathing, kissing, slurping, chewing, these like audible noises that are pretty commonplace, they drive me nuts. It's like nails on a chalkboard. So kissing is a bad one, and these two are like eating each other's faces off. So I turn around, and like I usually didn't interject with people when they started hooking up, but like these two were like about to start having sex, and I look and I see this guy's like got his hand up his girl's skirt. I'm like, "You guys, can you please put on your seatbelts?" The girl turns around, she goes, "We're not getting into an accident. It's fine." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I slam my foot on the accelerator and rip onto the highway, and they both go toppling to the side, and they start swearing at, well, I'm sorry, she's swearing at me. He's just looking at her. It's like he's had his soul sucked out of his body. And so I'm overhearing these two as we're driving. They finally decided to put on some seatbelts. And the way that this guy is talking to this girl is disgusting. And this was a common theme. I can't believe the way some women like to be talked to, or the way that some men think it's okay to talk to women. It's appalling. And so, like, I'm not going to repeat what this guy is saying, but it's enough to almost make me want to turn around and slap this guy. But she's eating it up. She loves it. And so they wanted to go to White Castle and it's like 30 minutes have gone by, and they're doing every single thing they can to make me mad. It's like they have a checklist. And this guy has yet to even look at me. And so I hear the guy say to the girl, "Hey, tell him to take me to White Castle," or tell him to take us to White Castle. It's like I got so upset that he couldn't acknowledge that I was right there just 2 feet from him when I'm kindly doing this service, and I have been like nothing but pleasant the whole ride. I turn around and I look at him and I go, "Garrett, I am right here. There is no need for you to treat me like that. Please address me like a person." He won't even look at me. He's just still looking right at this girl. And so I'm starting to think, indeed, this girl is a succubus sent from hell, and she has taken his soul out or something. We get into the parking lot of White Castle. They talk about going to the bathroom. I'm praying they do, because I'll just end the ride and be done with it. Well, they don't want to. And so they order like everything off the White Castle menu. They make an absolute mess in my back seat, even though I tell them not to eat. And then they just spill a bunch of food everywhere, and they get out and they leave the doors open, and I turn around, and there's the water I gave them, like they poured it all over the floor. So that was probably the rudest experience I've had with a person. I've had others that were along those lines, like alcohol, like I said, always a factor. But it just, that level of rudeness, it blew me away. And to this day, I don't understand why this guy would not even look at me. It was just so, nobody else was that rude to me.
Wow. And you didn't quit being an Uber driver over that particular incident. You kept going.
Yeah, no, I kept going for about another 11 months after that now. I don't want to get into it. I've had lots and lots of stories that are equally intriguing. Now let's get on to the best story I had. This one's a lot shorter. And this is where I really, in the book, go into chaos theory, because this guy, I will never forget him. And it was one of those days where I was intentionally thinking about the weird choices that I was making after dropping people off, like going left at the end of a block instead of straight. I ended up with a gentleman who is by now likely dead. He had stage 4 brain cancer, and he was just this nice guy on this week where everybody was a freaking baboon. And it made me mad that this guy, the universe isn't fair. This guy, like I said, he's probably dead by now. So we just had this wild talk about chaos theory. I was telling him what I was telling you guys about the zeros and ones and how I just like to think about, is it destiny or not? And just in talking with this guy and interacting with this guy and sharing this moment with him that I know I'll never forget, giving me a lesson on life and death like that, it was beautiful and so sad too.
Yeah, it's like of all I understand that. I used to work in a cancer center, and I would have some of these people. You think, my God, this is so unfair. One of my patients was in her 20s and never smoked a day in her life, and was terminal. We were at the end stage, doing what we could at the cancer center. Her next stop was hospice care. And then you'd have the guy that would smoke out in his car, waiting for his appointment, would come in reeking of cigarette, who had a benign kind of cancer that, no cancer is a good cancer. But this guy's prognosis was going to be up and running, probably live another 40, 50 years. And I just okay, where's God in all this? I mean, this is, I can understand where you say you had to question things because of that. And I would meet, one of the guys I met actually worked on the lunar excursion modules back in the day. And he didn't have a cancer so much as a hematological disorder. But I would see, and this is a part-time thing for me, so I can understand where you're going with, you meet this person and it's different. It was just random. The person that should have been working at the clinic that day called in. They called me. And I was coming across some of the same ideas you are. It's like, wow, this is just this random somebody having a sore throat allowed me to meet somebody who built a lunar excursion module. Did you find any, when you interacted with people, did you run into anybody who had actually had contributed something other than just, say, your work-a-day, say, accountant or public address system operator? Did you run into these?
No, I met industry professionals. I got glimpses into all kinds of industries just by surveying people that are parts of them, and I've learned all kinds of things. I also got all kinds of these weird people who, they had these quirky jobs. I had one guy, he was an Arctic cartographer, and he told me all about, he spends 5 months a year in the Arctic just making maps. And so he said, the Arctic, it is hell in winter format. At times it is majestic, other times it is miserable. At night, you can hear the ice singing. And it's just this description this guy gave me was incredible. And I'd never met anybody who'd been to the Arctic before, so that was a good example. I drove a cyber defense contractor who joked that he'd tell me what he did, but he'd have to kill me. And I wasn't sure if he was kidding or not. So, you meet all kinds of quirky people. I drove a couple Harlem Globetrotters one night to a strip club. I had the drummer of the band Blitzen Trapper throwing the most ridiculous temper tantrum I've ever seen a grown man have because this woman wouldn't bang him. All kinds of folks. Like I said, it's a sociology experiment on wheels.
Did you come away with obviously you came away with more exposure to humanity at large, but did it make you think we're a doomed race, or was it an equal mix, or did you think, oh my
Equal,
God?
definitely equal. Because some days I lose my faith in humanity, especially when I'm blown away by how stupid some people are. Like I would pull into someone's driveway, right? You order this car, and it tells you the car that's coming to pick you up. It tells you the driver, what he looks like, gives you pictures. It gives you the license plate of the car, and it gives you a real-time GPS map of where the car is. Between those things, you have no business calling your driver and asking them where you are because you can just whip out your phone and see. But I had people that would exit out of all this detailed information to call me and ask me where I am. And I would see them on their phone, across the street or whatever, and just, oh my God. Or other times I would roll into someone's driveway, like a private driveway. Clearly, I'm their ride. And they would come out and bang on the window. Hey, are you my ride? Like, are you kidding me? Get in the car. Time is money. So yeah, you get one of those, and it lowers your faith in humanity. But then you get these other people that are awesome. Like I drove this guy. He was completely hammered, and he had the most eloquent vocabulary I think I've ever heard on anyone in my life. Like everything that came from this guy's mouth, he was just dripping poetry, and he was smashed. He could barely even walk.
Let's talk about some of the better ones because we're painting such a bleak picture of humanity right now.
Right. Yeah. Like I said,
I
I'm a cynic, so I like to play devil's advocate. But
if we lived in the same town, I'm sure we would socialize because you and I are on the same track on so many things. But let's talk about some of the ones that were a pleasant surprise. Did you have one that you picked up that you thought, oh God, not where you had the scenario, where you got to where you could see what the scenario was going to be by the person? How many of them got wrong-footed? How many of them did you think this is going to be a baboon and it turned out not to be?
Well, to be honest, it was pretty rare. I could usually call it as I saw it. But, when I was pleasantly surprised, I was really pleasantly surprised because it was something I was just so not expecting. So, good example, the way that our market is designed here, you want to be in downtown Minneapolis. And everything outside of that is varying degrees of inconvenience. So the further you get from downtown Minneapolis, the more you have capacity to get trapped or end up in what I call suburban hell. And that's where you end up in these suburbs where the ride rates are infrequent and everyone is spread apart and people only want to go further into obscurity. They don't want to go towards downtown Minneapolis. And there's no double, triple, quadruple rate rides. They're all just base rate rides, which I didn't make any money on, really. So when I would be picking people up in these parts of town and, looking at their ratings, I would just be holding my breath because it's like, oh, God, here we go. We're going to go further out into the middle of nowhere. The longest trip I ever took, and this was before Uber slashed their prices, so it was a profitable trip, was from somebody who was in one of those suburbs where I was thinking, oh, great, they just don't want to go up the street, and I drove all this way to go get them. No, this guy wanted to go 100 miles, and he threw me a huge tip when we were done. And just in taking this hour and a half long trip with this stranger, this was also when I first started too. And interacting with this guy, we had such a long and detailed conversation about so many topics. And it was just a really pleasant experience. And at the time, seriously validated my choice in undertaking this mission. But then, a couple of weeks later, Uber slashed their prices and then Lyft slashed their prices and then all kinds of other crap happened.
Did you come out with after the experience was done, you had a chance to compile everything and you're putting it in this book. How did you come out of it differently? I mean, what changes did this make in you?
Sociability definitely is a big one. So I used to be kind of awkward and I met my favorite YouTube star tonight, and I was not I was the only one who was calm at this event. There were people freaking screaming their heads off. And I'm just like, oh, all right, and walked up and met them, and like, that was that. And it was fine because I met so many people and interacted with so many people that it's been really beneficial for me in terms of just being able now to carry conversation and interact with total strangers.
Evan, I got a couple questions for you from our Spaced Out Radio audience. This one comes from Shar. She is asking, Eric, do you feel the chaos theory controls your life?
There you go. Question was for you, right?
No, for you. You're the guest.
Oh, you said Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Evan. That's all right.
My bad.
I mean, I can't really help it. I mean, question for the person who asked that, do you think God controls your life?
She would say yes, because she is very religious.
Okay. Well, I don't think chaos controls my life, because there's nothing I can do to stop it. I sure wish I knew that formula for manipulating reality, but I have yet to figure it out, and until I do, I'm not going to worry about it.
We have a question from Gail for you from the SOR Space Travelers Club. She is asking, Evan, with everything you have gone through, from Uber driver to writer to screenplay author, what are you up to now?
So you can find me on YouTube, you guys. I'm at Evan Kail. I'm putting a lot of time and effort into my YouTube channel because I'm trying to expand that. I just got my second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, so I'm very passionate about that. I am a painter. I'm a drawer. So basically, I'm just living the artist lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I also am starting to put together pieces for my next book. It's going to be a work of fiction, but I can't really talk about that. I'm also going to be doing a follow-up to my book, and I should clarify for listeners, my book is called Ubered, My Life as a Rideshare Driver. It's on the Amazon Kindle website. I digitally self-published it. I don't have a publishing deal yet, so this is a platform I'm using to get that. And you can read the first chapter for free, so I would really appreciate if my listeners here would check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am working on a follow-up book, because the book is only the first year. Something incredible happened on the 1-year anniversary, down to the minute of giving my first ride. And from there, that's just kind of where I decided to cap it. But I still kept driving for 10 more months, and I still kept collecting stories. So look for a follow-up book. I don't have a date on when that'll be out yet, though.
This one comes from Dennis in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He is asking, Eric, have you noticed that you have become more extroverted or introverted since you worked with started working with the personal chaos theory?
Let me think how to answer that. I guess I'd say I've become more extroverted. Yeah, I don't really have any framework to lay on top of that. I'm open and vocal about my opinions. I think that the whole idea of chaos is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to think about and just contemplate and let your mind get blown. And I enjoy talking about it. Yeah.
And one final one for you here, Evan. This one comes from Bill. He is asking, Evan, can you explain a little bit about what you mean about fractals?
Fractals?
Do you find that fractals are part of chaos theory? How the branching, like what we find in nature where things split off indefinitely, and chaos theory where you can go down. Do you see a connection between fractal theory and chaos theory?
Yes, but I wouldn't call it a splinter, really. I mean, it's a river that flows, which I guess would read into the whole is it destiny or not thing again. I would say if I had to pick a viewpoint, I am a big fan of the multiverse theory. I think that this dimension is bizarre, and I think there's an infinite number of other ones that are equally as bizarre. So within that might be fractal, and perhaps it's the way it's set up, it's constantly splitting and we just don't realize it or we just don't see it. Like right now, this conversation takes a fractal split, or perhaps there's a dimension where this is where it starts to split. One of the viewers hears this and does something and sets into event a chain of motion.
So the interconnectedness can be good or you mentioned you're a filmmaker. What kind of projects are you doing?
Right now, I'm trying to get a feature off the ground here in Minnesota. I've got a horror script and I've got a crime script that I wrote, so I'm looking for investors for that. That's kind of another story. But right now, as far as current projects that I work on, like I said, I do YouTube. I have a talk show, and the talk show it's kind of like journalism, basically. And I also do music videos and commercials here in Minnesota.
Awesome. What's your for your the project talk show? What's your
the show? So on YouTube I do vlogs, but the talk show is called In the Closet. It is a talk show in my closet. It's making fun of my sexuality, and occasionally I have out of the closet segments where I leave my closet and I go cover events and interview celebrities.
That sounds interesting. I had started before I met Dave, I had started a similar project. I called it From the Broom Closet. And then I found out there was an entire LGBT community that had already co-opted that. Mine was a completely different take. My broom closet was more like paranormal. It started because the little lab I work in is a broom closet lab. And I used to log on to a forum, say, greetings from the, let's say, greetings from the broom closet in Clemens. So I thought I would use that as a jump, to jump off. It takes a lot of effort to sustain something like that. My hat's off to you if you can do it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they say YouTube, the first year is the hardest, and it was definitely the hardest. But now that I've overcome that, I am seeing a good growership in my audience. There's more people checking out my stuff. I started vlogging more just because the talk show is like a crazy, crazy amount of work to do. I have a 3-camera setup. Each interview is about half an hour, and, I got to line all that up and go through an Adobe and cut it and do it all myself. And it was taking just a lot of time, and I also had a role where I fed guests, which got kind of expensive. So, yeah, I do like one in the closet now a month, or I'll do like an out of the closet feature. And then for the other 3 weeks, because I do like one video a week, I'll just do like some kind of a vlog, whether it be talking about I guess I really haven't gotten too much into the abstract physics. Most of the vlogs have been either about things in my life or my sexuality, but I'm going to be diving more into some of these viewpoints that I'm sharing here in some of my upcoming vlogs.
I've got a question from Mario at the Spreaker SOR chat room. He asked, can Evan describe how chaos theory affects this planet?
Like I said, it's all around us. It's an endless sea of zeros and ones, and we're all part of it, whether we like it or not. There's nothing we can do about it. So you can elect that. You can allow that to affect your life, or you can just ignore it. It makes no difference. It's bigger than you, and it's beyond your understanding.
So it's like, don't bother worrying about it because it's like the weather. It's going to happen whether you
Or you can devote the rest of your life to trying to figure out this abstract formula I've been talking about. But good luck, because it's in the life of me, I can't figure it out.
We just don't have the mathematical machinery for it. It's beyond any kind of beyond any kind of calculus.
You would need, by my estimation, the mathematical prescription of the entire universe. So you would need the data of every single facet of matter and the way it behaves within the whole universe. So that's something that nothing could ever estimate. And I say that because in order to find the sum, you need all the parts. If you're filling in blanks, it's just a prediction, and there's probably some kind of an outlier somewhere that throws off your whole theory.
You calculate 25 pages later of calculations, you realize you didn't carry the one or something else.
Right, and you burn your whole life.
The exception to the rule just...
I was majoring in psychology for a little bit at the University of Minnesota. It's where I became such a firm believer in the powers of suggestion. And the reason why I quit doing psychology, or why I lost interest in it, it became apparent to me that it was just a school of guessing games. It's just abstract theory, and there's no real clear-cut right or wrong answer. It's like the Jewish faith. So I just, that did it for me. I decided to get a more realistic major after. I forget what it was. Some theory got disproved, and we had just had a test on it the semester before. So it was like, I may as well learn Harry Potter spells.
Right. I've got a follow-up question from Mario, if you don't mind. When when Evan says zeros and ones, does he mean we live in a holographic universe / the Matrix, or where everything can be broken down to bits, ones and zeros?
Yeah. I love that idea of a holographic reality. That is a level of abstraction that is even beyond what we're talking about. But when I say zeros and ones, what I mean is, in terms of the mathematical language, the language of the universe, zeros and ones is how we essentially break down matter to its most rudimentary form. I mean, I guess you could try and scale it further, but for simplicity's sake and for numerical sake, 0-1 binary code is the numerical way of translating data in the universe.
We are very close to being on the edge of a functional quantum computer. Now, I mean, they've got one now that's the percentage of getting the answer. Of course, they're plugging in a formula that they know an answer to, and they're judging how accurately this thing is working by how close it gets to this number, and they're getting very close. Do you think quantum theory? This is a question from Love Energy at the Spreaker chat room. Does quantum theory conflict with chaos theory, since quantum theory postulates we influence matter by observing it? I think we touched on that a little earlier when I was talking about, in the beginning, when I was talking about Niels Bohr bringing in Einstein. But can you unravel that a little bit, maybe? Do you think
I would say no. I would say that is a flawed human analysis of reality, and that we're placing too much emphasis on ourselves. Another reason why I think religion is BS. So, this whole system of what I'm describing, this is something that is beyond us and is more powerful than us. And to say that we could influence that is extremely audacious.
Well, there is some validity in that. It appears that at least in a laboratory setting, that the observer does influence what's going on at the quantum level. And I'm thinking, have you? There was the experiment where they take a photon and they split it. They're now quantumly entangled particles. They send one down a waveguide a little further, and the one on a shorter path. Okay, the first particle the first wave hits a particle detector. The waveform collapses, and it hits the grid, and it's recorded as a particle. The longer leg, the photon the waveform travels. There's no particle counter, hence no observer, and it ends up on the spectrum, and the waveform doesn't collapse. However, the first particle that was detected as a particle now reverts to wave because of it's like a reverse of causality. So
a tree falls in a forest.
Well, I think that was quite eloquently answered in a book, The Unobservable Universe. When the tree falls, do the laws of physics necessarily, does gravity pull it to the ground? Yes. Does the air become disturbed and create waves? Yes. But if there's no observer, is there a sound? By definition,
when Schrödinger sticks his cat in the box, where does it go?
Right. It's both alive and dead at the same time. So you've got this point where there's these forces going on around us that we really can't control, that we're sort of at the mercy of. But on the same token, you can prove that by direct observation, we can change an outcome. So where do you think the two, where's the reconciliation in these two things?
Wow. I don't think I'm prepared to answer that, to be honest. That's pretty wild.
Okay. Well, let's go. I read some of your articles on the collective the collective
evolution, yeah.
Collective evolution, yeah. Now, I liked your one about the origins of the universe. Have you heard of the new theory that they've been working at? It's actually a movie on Netflix was just released called Einstein's Biggest Mistake. And these two physicists say in order for the observed universe to behave the way it did, they believe that the speed of light had to have been faster than it currently is at when the universe started. That it can't have been what it is now unless it's like a threshold. In order for there to be that much, many observable light years, there would have had to been 6 or 7 different big bangs that all in different regions in order for what we see now to have existed. Have you run into that?
That's something I could certainly wrap my head around. I mean, that's just simple scales. So the universe at a more compressed scale might have different sets of rules, if you will, the speed of light being one of those. So the speed of light now is the par for the course for where the universe is at. Different universe, different size, possibly different speed of light. And if that is the case, then yeah, I guess Einstein probably did make a pretty big mistake.
It is 186,000 miles.
186,000 miles per second.
Per second, yeah. So
learn that from Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
Goku's instant transmission.
Okay, let's talk. Okay, so you're all right with time and the speed of light having. Okay, I've always thought a second is a second, a minute is a minute, but the rate at which a second occurs, or the rate at which a minute occurs, can vary.
Right. Well, time is subjective.
Yeah, it's like if you're in a class that's interesting, time flies. If you're in a class that's boring or you're having a slow night at work, 2 hours goes by in your head and you look up and it's only been 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's what pot is for.
Yeah. Unfortunately, until they legalize it, I'm afraid that's one of those things I'm not going to be able to. Well, let's drop out of the science. We're coming up on a break. Let's drop out of the sciences in the last hour, and let's go in. I see you wrote a lot about cryptids and monsters out there. Let's unwrap that a little bit. Yeah, you, me, our audience, Dave. I think we're good on that. Let's do that in the last hour. Let's get into the crypto, the evidence, and the pros and cons.
Yes, let's do that. I do want to ask right before we go, because we got about 4 minutes before we're going to go to break here, Evan. There's a lot of conversation on Twitter about you being a self-proclaimed atheist, yet you're wanting a lot more proof in the way things are going with the chaos theory and the way people view God and faith. When you decided that you believe there was nothing out there, it's a one-and-done lifestyle, did you come to that answer wholeheartedly with conviction, or did it take some time to pare everything down to come to that conclusion?
I actually don't believe in the one-and-done. I loosely believe in reincarnation, and that kind of flows into the whole, very simply, life is a tangible element that we don't quite know how to measure. We don't understand. It is way, way, way beyond us. Where I fall into the aggressive atheism category is any human-based religion, any religion that humans came up with, is freaking nonsense. It is the telephone game mixed with tribalism and years and years and years, centuries and centuries, millennia of just backwards thinking and repression and all kinds of other crap mixed in the middle. So to prescribe the doctrines of the universe and say that we know all the truths when we have such a broken and imperfect way of getting to that conclusion, and then to bottle that up and package that as a religion, whether it be Christianity or Islam or anything else, that's where you lose me. So I don't not believe in a God. I just don't believe in a human God. Perhaps something did create everything, and I guess that would be a God. I'm open to that idea. I just think it is so beyond human understanding to try and prescribe that and say that we know the answer to that you lose me. And then I fall into the tribe of atheism because I combat these theologies, these human-made theologies, these human-made lies.
Would you then consider yourself maybe more agnostic? Because that's the way it sounds to me.
If you put a gun to my head, I'd say I'm an atheist and there is no God, pull the trigger. But that's if push comes to shove.
Conviction, my friend, with conviction. That's all I got to say. Absolutely. We are talking with Evan Kail tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He is an author. He is a studious researcher of the chaos theory, cryptids, which, as Eric Markham said, we are going to get into in hour number 3. I may pop in a little bit more. I'm feeling a little bit better here. I've had a little bit of a rough day. Wasn't feeling so well. So I'm probably going to pop in a little bit more here when we get more into the cryptid section, because as a Bigfoot eyewitness, I want to hear what Evan has to say about it all. I'm intrigued. I'm rubbing my hands together, getting them all warm.
I'm intrigued, too. I didn't know you were a witness.
I am a witness. I was about within 100 feet of 2 of them. It was awesome. And we'll get into that.
Yeah, I bet.
Right after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines. Your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back for the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night and Sunday, Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, along with Elizabeth Anglin, are in for Spaced Out Weekend starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. I will be wandering off in the snow, well into the wilderness, dodging the moose, the wolves. Hopefully the bears have gone to sleep for the winter, and I'm going to find myself a nice warm cave where I can steal a Wi-Fi signal off of one of the Sasquatch in the mountains to gather in to watch and listen to SOR on the weekend. If you're listening in on the United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 160 countries around the world, thank you for inviting Spaced Out Radio into your listening ears. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor. Visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight, and it's a doozy indeed. And, you know, Bill, you have me grinding my teeth on this one all night long. I don't know what it is. Polyphiloprogenitive. Polyphiloprogenitive is what it is. There, I just had to get my tongue around it. There's your password for the night if you're an SOR space traveler, and if you are, make sure you use it wisely. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you, so make sure you check them all out, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a night. For the first 2 hours, we talked chaos theory with Evan Kail, our guest tonight. Now we're going to get into the world of cryptids. Evan, welcome back.
Hello!
Hello! Same with you, Eric.
Doubtfire.
Hi.
Yeah, good to have you with us, Big E. The preacher is back. Evan, what do you think of the world of cryptids? Do you think that they are actually existing or figments of people's imaginations?
Well, unknown is the word of the night. And in regards to cryptids, well, in 2011, National Geographic estimated that 86% of the world's species remain undiscovered, which leaves only 14% in the realm of what is known. So what is in that 86%? Who the hell knows? But, you know, sky's the limit, because that's a baffling majority of species that we haven't categorized yet. So could it be a megalodon? Could it be a gigantopithecus? Could it be something else entirely? Who knows? And that's where it interests me. I mean, this is a crazy big planet. The ocean is deep and vast, and the jungles are far and wide. Well, I guess they're getting a lot smaller these days, but there's still a lot of parts of the world that remain untouched, and what is exactly in them, who knows? And so that's where my interest comes into play in regards to cryptids. I mean, I truly rule nothing out because I don't know.
You know, as someone who has had a Bigfoot sighting, and I had in 2013, around September 10th, a sighting of two of them within 100 feet of me. Earlier that year, my wife had a sighting of one in a different location when we were out ATVing for the day. Let's stick with Bigfoot for just a moment here. We have so many people running around the forests looking for this creature. And as we were talking about during the break, this is where people say they are conducting scientific estimations of what this cryptid is. Do you think we are going far enough in the research to try and prove or disprove the existence of Sasquatch?
Well, I mean, ultimately, what does it matter? It's just an animal, and there's so many other animals that, yeah, it's an important part of understanding the planet, understanding where we came from, because that would be, I guess you could call it a missing link. But there's bigger fish to fry, and that's, in terms of dollars in research, there's other things to research. But for all purpose sake, I would be fascinated and would love to learn of the discovery of such a creature still alive.
I think many people will. Part of the problem that I have with the research that is going on is I think we have too many people in the field right now who are basing their opinion as scientific explanation. When you look into this, do you notice that as well, or do you feel that we are on the right track?
No, I mean, it's injected with pseudoscience. And like right when we started this broadcast, I said, hey, don't put me in with the Bigfoot Club because I don't like calling it Bigfoot. I mean, it's a cryptid, but to use the word Bigfoot is to start to suddenly demonize it in terms of all the crap that's been mixed up with it. Like, okay, do you think the Patterson tape is a hoax, or do you think it's real?
I think it's absolutely real.
Okay, I don't know. Like, I actually don't know, but I am afraid to go near it, even though it is something where I could just say, like, it could honestly be either way. I could see how it could be fake. I could also see how it could be real. But it's been so dragged through the mud in so many different arenas and so many different levels, and then saturated with marketable shows like Chasing Bigfoot or the other crap where they make it sound like they're going to find them, and of course they never found them because you would have heard about it if they did. So, you know, the whole field gets muddied by something like what's happened with Bigfoot.
What convinced me of the Patterson-Gimlin film being real was one little piece of evidence. Well, they're not so little. And that is...
if I can guess it?
Go ahead.
Is it the stagger in the step?
No.
Okay, what is it?
I don't think anybody, especially in the 60s, if they are walking around the forest pretending to be Bigfoot, is going to sew a pair of breasts on the creature's outfit. I just don't see that happening. And when you look at it closely and you see a pair of breasts on there, that to me made it 100% real. Now, a lot of people will say
either that or whoever made that costume is really sick.
Exactly. But because if you are borrowing an ape costume from your local costume store or you sew one up yourself, I don't think you're going to take the time to say, hey, let's put a pair of titties on this thing. I don't think you're going to do that. You know, I really don't. Eric, you're having a little bit of microphone trouble. But I really don't think, Evan, that you're going to take the time to do that. Okay, the shakiness from the horse, you can hoax. You know, the location of where it is and the distance between you, you can hoax. But it is the breasts of the creature that absolutely convinced me.
I'm looking at the footage right now, and you know, it's funny as I've seen this tape so many times, but I never noticed that for some reason.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. You might have just made a believer out of me on that statement.
Well, you know, and that's the proof of it, to me. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have enough evidence, okay, because my thought of Bigfoot is way out there from a lot of people's. I believe there is something a little bit more supernatural to this creature if we're just focusing on that, and that's the reason why we haven't found a body. That's the reason why we haven't found maybe a limb or bone structure or anything along those lines that have been torn up by animals. But when it gets back to that whole Patterson-Gimlin film, it's the breasts that absolutely convince me it's real.
Okay, I can dig that. So that's all I have to say about that.
Eric?
Well, they've done some... they've actually taken a frame-by-frame study and stabilized the footage to where it's not as jerky and the resolution is a little better. And you can actually see movement in the breast tissue. And they always go back to the fact that when Patterson-Gimlin, when they shot that film, neither one of them had a lot of money. A lot of that footage, or a lot of money that they had, was actually invested in renting that equipment. That wasn't a camera that either one of them owned. They had to rent that. And the story is they had been out in that area. They'd heard of a sighting. They saw footprints. They thought, well, let's see if we can't film this thing, with the idea they were going to get rich on it. It never happened, but you know, it did a small theater run, and it didn't net the guys a lot of profit. But as they have stabilized it, they've done mechanical gait studies, and once you stabilize, you see muscle movement, and it's been said that in order to have built a costume that anatomically correct and that showing the muscle movement and everything was beyond the financial capabilities of the men who were there, and was almost outside of the technology of costume making at the time. So the more I looked into that, the more I thought, there might be. I'm with Dave. I believe that it's true, just because I don't think that those two guys would have had the financial or the skills to make a costume that could fake out that many people that well.
Yeah, I mean, we still analyze the footage to this day, and this was like 45, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, there's whole shows where they've got the tallest human actor, bodybuilder type that they could to try and to make that gait. They'd use motion capture technology, like Andy Serkis was subjected to be Gollum, where you don't see the character, you see the mechanics of the moving. And a human apparently can't walk that way.
Yeah, like I said, I was asking what you thought was the thing that sold you the most, and I asked the stoop because I've heard that from numerous analysts that the stoop is what sells it. And now the titties are what sell it for me now.
Yeah. And you see them move. I mean, okay, let's say on the far side of doubt, given the doubt, okay, they decide, well, to camouflage this from being obviously a rented gorilla suit, let's sew titties on it. They are not going to they're not going to move like that. I mean,
right.
Those guys didn't have the money to go out and buy prosthetic. I'm sure if back then truly operable, or, I think if there were any such things as breast implants back then, they were probably hellishly expensive, and you're not just going to go into a doctor's office and say, hey, can we pair, we need a couple fake boobs, can we borrow them for the weekend? That's not going to happen, So
yeah, you're part of my rewards program?
Yeah, exactly. Well, go ahead, Dave. You've got more Bigfoot experience than I do.
Well, Dennis brings up a very, very interesting comment in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He goes, costume, think of Planet of the Apes back then. Not exactly good realism or good by realism standards. And I think that's an excellent example of using the Planet of the Apes costumes, because we could barely nail it on them, let alone what we are seeing in Bluff Creek from the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Exactly. That's one of the key factors in professional costume makers couldn't do it that well. So we're supposed to expect that these two, one was rodeo cowboys with don't have two nickels to rub together, came up with a better than Hollywood costume that had a big budget behind it.
Yeah. Nope, highly unlikely that some cowboys will be able to finance something better than a Hollywood production.
You mentioned Megalodon as we move on here from Bigfoot, because I want to get as much out of this as possible here. I think if anything, any cryptid that I believe in besides Bigfoot, it's Megalodon.
Megalodon, yeah, for sure. I actually do. I will say, I firmly do believe that there is a Megalodon somewhere in the ocean, somewhere out there. I mean, the ocean is so big and so vast, and something like that could easily still be alive, hiding from prying human eyes. I mean, the conolith was declared extinct as of, I forget how many millions of years ago, but then they found one in 1938, and since finding one, they found an entirely new line of them. Make him sound like a designer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's proof's in the pudding. That's proof in and of itself.
Right. When they found the first coelacanth, they shipped it to a biologist. They shipped it to a scientist on a different island, and a lot of confusion why you didn't get another one for so many years was because he wanted all the credit, and where he did the research is where everybody thought they were looking. It was thousands of miles away from where the coelacanth was actually discovered, where it was originally caught. They've since then figured out what scam he had played, and they went to the area of the Indian Ocean where the thing was originally caught, and they're below recreational diving depth. They're at the area where you're using mixed gas, and you're probably not getting 20 minutes of bottom time because of your air consumption rate. And lo and behold, there they are for anybody who can dive that deep. They hang out under rock shelves and in caves, and no wonder they were considered extinct. They don't live in an area where people are going to just randomly, are going to see them often.
Yeah.
Something's out there that can predate on a 9-foot shark. I think it was a 9-foot female. Did you read that one, Evan? There was a study shark. They had a tag on her.
Yeah, but it got eaten and shit out, and they were baffled as to what could have done it.
Yeah, because the data, something hit it hard and fast.
Yeah, and it just plunged. Yeah. Yeah, no, maybe. Or, it could be a giant squid. That's something that was regarded as a legend until pretty recently. And then it, kind of, the more we put into looking into the ocean, the more we've seen, hey, these creatures are real. They are out there. But for some reason, our species is fixed on going to the moon instead of mastering our own ocean, which kind of perplexes me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easier
going to Mars now and beyond.
Yeah, it's easier to go to the moon than it is to traverse the depths. It's easier to engineer for vacuum than it is for, several tons per square inch.
I want to make a comment here from Derek on Twitter. He goes by @tiredoframen. And he brings up a good point, and I hope it's not about ramen noodles because those things are horrible. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's #SpacedOutRadio if you want to make a comment. And Derek brought up a point from a magazine called ScienceDaily.com online, and basically what that is saying, as he breaks it down, that there's over 8.7 million species on Earth. 86% of all the species are on land, and 91% of those in the seas, science believes, have yet to be discovered. So to say things like the thylacine in Australia or New Zealand is extinct when there are still rare sightings, to say that Megalodon is extinct, to say that Bigfoot doesn't exist, or Dogman or the Frogman of Ohio, we're really closing doors before they've even be open. Wouldn't you say that, Evan?
What the hell is the Frogman of Ohio?
I don't know. It's some cryptid sighting in the 70s.
Okay.
It's actually a really cool story because 2 police officers are actually the ones who encountered it.
Interesting. What? Really quickly, how's the story go?
Oh, I'd have to bring it up. We were told on this... every third Wednesday of the month, we have a gentleman come on our show. His name is Rob Morphy, and he is a crypto historian from a website called cryptopia.us, and he comes in with the stranger sightings that have been reported over the history of time, and he goes out and investigates them. And apparently these police officers were driving down the highway, and they saw this strange thing sitting along the highway trying to get some roadkill off the ground. And when they pulled up to it, this thing stood up, and it was a giant frog, and it leaped up and leaped into this marsh that was nearby.
Huh.
Yeah, totally coincidental.
Yeah, I guess I haven't heard that one.
Mm-hmm.
No dash cams back then either.
Yeah, right. No, it's like anything else. I mean, there is more in the void of unknown than there is in the known, and speculate what is in the unknown is just not feasible. So until we know everything, we don't know anything.
So what do you then say about all of the sightings of, say, Bigfoot? Let's keep to that for a minute. People are literally by the hundreds or thousands having sightings of this cryptid creature every year. And
right, all over the planet, too.
Not all those people are just seeing imaginary beasts walking around.
Right. Some certainly are. The mind sees what it wants to. People get confirmation bias. They want something exciting. Maybe some people go camping, and they intentionally sit up at night around their campfire in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere listening for any kind of bump in the night so they can write it off as an experience that they had. But yeah, there's a lot of validation. I think what's really interesting are the stories from the Himalayas of ape-like creatures slaughtering cattle and respectable Sherpas and people who have lived there their whole life. They swear, yeah, this is a thing. There's this big crazy monster that comes out and eats things.
So what do you then think of things like the chupacabra, which are said to be running around?
Right, and I've seen some of those videos online of those like freaky looking like hairless dogs. I mean, they clearly exist. Those aren't animatronic animals. Those are real animals. We don't really know what those are. There's a theory that it's a diseased coyote, but it doesn't look proportionally like any coyote I've ever seen before. It's got this like the giantest head.
One of the things about that, though, is they're calling that a chupacabra. But if you look at the origin of the chupacabra, like Puerto Rico, totally different animal. They're calling these ancient coyotes chupacabras, but then when you read the description of the original goat sucker, they're nowhere near each other.
Right. Yeah, who knows? There's, I think I've heard some theory somewhere that the quote-unquote chupacabra was some kind of government experiment that escaped.
Yeah, that is one of the... There's a research area in Puerto Rico, and supposedly it was some kind of a chimeric genetics experiment that...
Yeah, guess what? You're talking to him right now.
Oh, okay.
Do you believe that a lot of these creatures are hidden by the government? Because there's a lot of people who believe out there that Bigfoot, for instance, exists. It's provable. The Smithsonian is said to be actually housing bodies, even though nobody ever comes out and says that. And the reason why I ask you that is one of our intrepid researchers here around Spaced Out Radio Land, his name is Mike. Mike is an avid hunter in my area here. And Mike is retired. He goes out for hunting for food. And he was, a few weeks ago, was wandering around, driving around one of the trails where he came into contact with a conservation officer who knows him. And they struck up a conversation. The conservation officer says to Mike, "What are you doing today?" And Mike says, "Well, I'm actually looking for footprints." And he goes, "What kind?" He goes, "Would you believe me if I told you Bigfoot?" And the conservation officer, Mike was expecting him to laugh or give him that weird eye. Well, they ended up talking the next half an hour. And the conservation officer, who will remain unnamed, I don't even know his name, Mike does, basically said, "Look, I cannot confirm or deny anything for the security of my job. We are not allowed to talk about what is out in the forest or some of the things we have seen. However, I have seen some very strange things that I cannot explain, and if anything comes up, how about I give you a call?" Because he knows we're investigating them now. And
well, sorry, go on.
If that's the attitude of a government official, that they are shutting their own officers up, that's a dangerous precedent to proving or disproving some of these creatures, is it not?
Well, I mean, if that is valid, and there's two reasons behind it. The first reason is it's a safety issue. These creatures are either dangerous or they're so rare that they're protected and the government can't sanction their existence because then people go hunt them or they'll go looking for them. I've heard that Margaret Thatcher wanted to... If I get this right. I've heard that at one point it was an actual government agenda in the UK to make Nessie a protected species, but there was fear that that would spark poaching and that would spark wild hunts for it, and the creature would be... if the government acknowledged it existed, then it would be hunted down. So perhaps that would be the case with that. It's just simple conservation. The other implication is there's something in its DNA that would be such a baffling missing link or would throw such a monkey wrench into science that the public just can't know about it. But I don't know. Which is my slogan for the night.
It is dangerous, though, when something like that is being covered up. And yes, I mean, there is literally millions of dollars on the line because if all of a sudden this elusive creature is proven, now you have to make state or provincial parks or national parks out of these areas to make sure it's a protected species. Then you got all the game hunters who don't give a care about the law, who are going to go out there and try and poach themselves one. So it does open up a Pandora's box on the other side as well. Would you agree with that?
Totally. That's a one-word answer.
Eric?
Well, by them actually telling their game officers we don't talk about that, isn't that sort of a form of tacit acknowledgement that it exists? Because if you're telling people, I mean, you don't tell people, they don't tell them. It just seems like making a rule about something makes that something exist. If there wasn't something there, there wouldn't be a rule about, don't talk about it. My take on that is, it's a tacit acknowledgement that this thing exists out there. If it exists, you wouldn't have to say don't talk about it.
Right. It's like Area 51.
Oh, come on. Who hasn't seen aliens around here? Put your hands up. Who hasn't?
Yeah, even I saw a UFO once when I was a kid.
I want to get to Ron's comment here in the SOR Space Travelers because I think it's kind of cool. He says, I worked in the fire towers in the forest, lived out there for 10 days alone. Just a bunk, no power, etc. Amazing how alive the forest is, especially at night. Things do come out at night. Now, he may be being a little cryptic there on the cryptids, but that's an excellent point. We just don't know. I mean, you now hear, everybody knows of Bigfoot. You now hear of this dogman-like creature that is said to be roaming around the forests of North America. I mean, once again, it's that Pandora's box that continues to open up.
Right.
Well, like we said, there's so much out there we don't know. We don't even know what we don't know. And these people can't all be smoking crack or weed and going out and seeing it. I'm sorry, it just can't be that. People have been sent to death row with sketchier evidence than we have and less reliable witnesses than we have on the UFO phenomena, say, or the Bigfoot phenomena. The evidence, it just seems like if you're like when you're trying to do the Amazing Randy challenge, they make it impossible to pass it because they add so much baggage to the proof that you couldn't do it.
Right.
I mean, they found hair samples. The Smithsonian even went up into the Himalayas and came back with. And I have looked for this article all over the place. I had the hard copy of that Smithsonian where they stated, beyond a shadow of doubt, that they brought back physical evidence of an unknown primate. But you try and find that, unless you got that back copy or have it on disc, I cannot find. I've spent hours looking for that reference to that, and it's not there.
What do you think, Evan, is the theory behind keeping all of these cryptids covered up? Do you think it's a matter of us just being narrow-minded that these creatures don't exist, or do you think there is a little bit of tinfoil conspiracy behind the reason why it's never been acknowledged?
Well, I'd say, if anything, it's probably just conservation and nothing more. We don't want to see these rare species killed off. They provide incredible looks into our past, into what the world used to be like, and possibly other missing links, or who knows, maybe some of these animals could have something in their bodies that maybe there's a cure for cancer in one of these animals, and then it would be hunted down. But no, I don't think the tinfoil hat thing is very valid. Though, I mean, like you said, the fact that it's, I can't talk about it, that's something that's strictly forbidden. That's kind of interesting. It makes you wonder. You're saying that park ranger was saying.
Absolutely. And, there is the story out of Nevada, if we go back to Bigfoot. In 1999, there was a forest fire where apparently a Bigfoot walked out of there and was treated medically and was quickly rushed off in a van. And basically all the firefighters who were on scene were basically told, if you value your life and your family, you really don't want to talk about what happened here.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of insurance Bigfoot's got.
Oh, I'm sure it's better than mine.
No, mine's pretty good, but that's because I got the Obamacare for another month. Then I'm screwed.
I'll move to Canada. Everybody gets free health care here.
I just might. Might be better than getting lined up and shot, but we're not here to get into politics.
No politics tonight. But aliens are close enough. You mentioned, you mentioned your UFO sighting. Tell us about that when you were a kid.
Oh, that's pretty typical. I was at my cabin, and I was just looking up, and there was a really bright star, and I was watching it for a while, and it kind of started a spectrum on me, like changing different colors, but so far away that I thought maybe it was just me, and then suddenly it goes from being stationary to moving, and it goes whoosh, and it's gone. I was about 8 years old, and I rushed in and told my parents, and they laughed at me.
Yes. That's kind of deflating as a kid at that age, because you know what you saw.
Right. And that's indeed something I'll never forget, because now when I do look up at stars, sometimes when I go for walks at night, I think about that, and I look to see if I can ever see it again. Obviously, I never have. There was at that cabin. There was a sighting. This was when I was a little kid. I actually was not up there. My mom was. She didn't see anything, but apparently lots and lots and lots of people in the town that it was by reported seeing some weird lights, and there was a giant electrical outage, in the whole county the next day. This was a few years after that.
Well, I would say keep looking, because it wasn't 6 months ago. I was up, my parents have a house up in the mountains in North Carolina, and it's kind of dark sky country where they're at. They're at a high enough elevation that you don't get a lot of ambient light messing with. Dave and I had just gotten off the phone post-show talk, and I was just, stargazing, and I saw very much like what you're saying. It went from being in one spot, rapidly moved to another spot, and then vanished.
Yeah.
That's about the third time.
That's pretty typical of sightings. They all kind of behave like that. The ships.
I was lucky in that the first sighting I ever had, my mom and dad were also there, and all three of us are staring up there looking at this thing, wondering, what is that? It was behaving, it was big white. It wasn't, it was too high up to be an airplane, and even if it had been like one of the early jet aircraft, we're talking 70s, they don't move. If it had been moving like what we were seeing, it would have been in trouble. It had been in the news the next day about a jetliner crashing. So at least in that case, we all saw it. So it wasn't me coming in saying, "Mom, Dad, look." I was lucky there. You had mentioned earlier that you grew up in a house that had some paranormal activity. Let's unwrap that a little bit.
Right. What's time we got here? Okay, we got 23 minutes. So we grew up, I'm an only child, and I'm from Edina, Minnesota. And my parents, when I was born, they had one house. My parents had just gotten married. And then they sold that and they moved to another one, and I was 3. And so when I was in 6th grade, I started waking up earlier to go to middle school. And I would be down in the morning, like really, really early in the morning. And out of the corner of my eye, we had, picture frames and stuff. I would see movement, like, really fast. And I wrote it off. It's just me. Well, it persisted. And then it started to be, I would hear things. I would hear, like, behind me, or I would hear a door close or something like that. No, so I'll never forget this night. It was Shabbat dinner, which is on Friday night. My grandparents had come over, family dinner, Jewish thing. And my dad's out in the garage smoking a cigarette. And I go, hey, can I talk to you? He goes, yeah. I close the door, and I go, this is going to sound weird, but is our house haunted? And he looked at me, and just this morbid expression came across his face. He didn't say any words. He just nodded. And it was one of those things where I had asked it, thinking that he would laugh at me. And then when I saw that that wasn't the case, it just sent a chill down my spine. So he revealed to me that there had been some terrifying things going on in the house that I wasn't aware of. We used to have mirrors in the basement, and we took them out because my dad one night, I had this thing when I was young, I'd want to go and sleep in my parents' bed, and my dad had a bad back, so he couldn't just pick me up and take me back to my bed. He'd have to sleep downstairs. One night, he woke up, and all the lights were on in the basement, and there was a bloody face staring at him from one of the mirrors, just staring. Another night, he was on the toilet downstairs, and he had the door open, and just this hulking figure ran by, and when it ran by, the door just, bam, slammed on its own. So for the longest time, my mom didn't believe it. And, I had learned about this, like I said, when I was in 6th grade. So in 7th grade, I got really curious about it, and I acquired a Ouija board, unbeknownst to my parents. And I would have friends over, and we would mess with the ghosts. And it was pretty scary. Types of things that would happen. It would sound like there's a roaring party in full swing, but it's maybe 50, 60, 70, 100 feet off. You'd hear giggling, people call your name, the temperature would drop 15, 20 degrees, doors would close. And after I started digging around with this Ouija board, I eventually stopped, but I definitely brought something into that house that wasn't there when I moved in, because the level of escalation thereafter was terrifying. Every time we tried to sell the house, the basement would flood, like biblical flood. And plumbers would come over, and they were just baffled as to what happened. The pipes would explode. The sinks would turn on by themselves, or all kinds of other crazy stuff would happen. The animals wouldn't go downstairs. And this is one of the most curious things, sometimes you would put something down, and you would turn around, and you would turn back, and it would be gone. And you get it back 5 minutes later or 5 years later, and it would reappear someplace completely random. Furniture would move. It was like an escalation as time progressed. So by the time my parents moved out of the house in 2011, I had already gone off to college. They hit a point where they had to leave because it was bad, the things that were going on. We had several realtors who would come to the house. The house was empty, and they would find there would be muddy footprints all over the basement. Things would get moved. It's typical poltergeist behavior. So I am probably the only person you'll meet who says he is an atheist but also believes in ghosts, just because I live them, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that is real. And that scares the hell out of me. Nothing scares me like that.
I thought ghosts were scary until I had a UFO land 150 yards away from me. I'm not trying to one up. I'm not trying to one up you here.
Here's why I would take the alien. Never thought that's a sentence I would say. That's something you can see, and the ghost, you can't see it. I once had the night, so when we would leave and come back, it was like they missed us, or like the activity would spike when we would come back from a trip or something. So I left, for college, and I came back a couple months later. I hadn't been to the house in a while, and I was sleeping one night, and there was some noise in my room, like someone was dicking with the blinds in my room, and sometimes verbal communication would work. A simple request would be heard. So I just, out loud, I said, "Stop it." And about 2 seconds after I said that, it was like Hercules punched the floor beneath my bed. My fucking bed shot up. And I was just laying there in this bed, and suddenly there's just boom! And I felt it, and my eyes shot open. And my first thought was, oh my God, if that hit me, if that physically hit me, that would be like getting hit by a truck. That would crush me. And my second thought was, holy crap, that just happened beneath me. I need to get the hell out of this house. So I ran into my parents' room. My dad was asleep. I ran out to the garage. My mom had earphones in and was working on some kind of I don't know. My mom's a crazy person. And I hugged her. I said, "I'm sorry, I'm going back to school. Goodbye." And I didn't come back to the house for a couple months after that.
Did that pretty much end it, or did you go back? Every time you go back, you'd have something similar happen. And how did
my parents moved out? My parents moved out shortly after that, and I wouldn't go to that house because that entailed me going there alone, which is just scary. So there were a couple times I went over there with friends, and there was one time my friend and I were sitting in the basement. There was no one home, and we suddenly heard somebody walking around upstairs.
And it just you and the friend. There was no.
Yeah, and I looked at him. And he looked at me. He goes, "Whoa!" And I go, "Yeah, you see, I'm not making it up."
It's always nice to get validation, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I have one friend who is a very religious person, thinks I am completely full of it to this day.
I wonder. Okay, religious people, by their nature, they're saying
they should jump on this bandwagon faster than anyone.
Exactly, because the whole idea of the religion is there's something after death.
Right, you
So
believe
why
in a
is it so
talking
hard?
snake, but you can't wrap your head around the mystery of death. That's pretty silly.
Did it? Shar wants to know. Did you ever have anything from that cab? Did it follow you anywhere?
Hang on one quick sec. Sorry, 1 second. Get you back in my headphones. Okay. So I had a team of ghost hunters come through the house because at one point I was trying to loosely make a movie on it. So it was going to be like a behind the scenes project. And these ghost hunters, let's just say they didn't quite know what they were doing. And so a couple of them, it did follow them home, and a few of them quit the team. Yeah. Weeding out the good ones and the bad ones, I guess.
Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily stuck to that play. Do you think maybe would you think that maybe going in there with a Ouija board gave it more? It seems like the more you believe in these things, the more you interact with them, the stronger they get. Do you think you might have escalated things by taking the Ouija board in there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, there was never violent behavior like there was after I started messing with that Ouija board.
Might have let something else in there that wasn't necessarily there to start with. When you were dealing with the Ouija board, what kind of phenomenon? Because people talk about how a planchette will jump out from under their fingers and fly across the room. Did you have any kind of, when you were using it, did you have any kind of really weird, other than just getting the answers, did you have any weird phenomena happen in the actual use of the...
There was one episode, I had some friends over, this was when I was in 8th grade. One of my friends got his hair pulled while we were using it. He talks about that to this day.
Wow. Anything ever happened specifically to you?
Other than the floor, my parents would entertain guests when I was younger. And, sorry, give me just one quick second, give me like 10 seconds. Maybe a little longer than 10. So my parents would entertain guests, and they would banish me to the basement because I was little. And I've got this one memory. They would buy me a Lego set. This was when I was really young. The Lego set somehow ended up on top of this, like, armoire. This, like, really tall armoire that I couldn't get up there if I tried because I was just too small. So my mom came down. She goes, Evan, what the hell are you doing? How did that get up there? And I just, I couldn't tell her. Another time I was playing, I remember this very vividly, I was playing Nintendo 64 in the basement during one of my parents' dinner parties. And just out of the corner of my eye, this giant hulking figure came running at me. And as soon as I turned and I looked, he disappeared behind this, tiny chair, his giant body should not have fit behind the chair. And I heard a giggle. And for some reason I thought it was my dad. I said, Papa? Because I call my dad Papa. And I got up and I looked. There's nothing there. That's the only time I ever, like, actually saw something.
Wow.
It's a pretty wild house. I'll tell you, one of the things I want to do in life, I want to buy that house back and I want to start running experiments in it, like scientific empirical experiments.
That would be awesome. That would really
But I need about $500,000 to buy that house, and I don't have that right now.
Oh, my God.
Here's a little interesting fact about that house. My parents sold it in 2011. It has traded hands 3 times since. The first people to buy it sunk $250,000 into it and flipped it at a loss less than a year later.
Wow.
What does that tell you?
That nobody's, if you're willing to put that much money into it and take a loss, there's something that's not. Something
They
ain't
want to
right.
get out of Dodge.
Yeah. The house I lived in prior to this, we had some of the same phenomenon you're talking about, where if you laid some, I think the spirit in the house was somewhat malevolent, or maybe they had just been an asshole in life and they were an asshole in death. Because right off the bat, when we moved in there, when you move into a place, you have to do some fixing up and do tools I would need for a specific job would disappear. And my wife is the world's worst, and she'll admit this, of just grabbing shit. She wants it out of sight. She wants the house clean. She will pick stuff up and put it in weird places and then not remember where she put it. Well, you add that to the fact that we have an entity that is actively, almost specifically targeting the tools needed for a specific job. I got to where I wouldn't even say what I was going to do. I wouldn't say, well, I'm going to take, one time I did, my wife said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to get the oxygen sensor out of the Toyota and swap it out. The specific socket I needed to get that oxygen sensor out was gone. Was not where I keep it, because I keep my automotive tools together and I know where they're at. By this time, she and I have realized that neither one of us is hiding each other's crap, that it's a phenomenon in the house. I go, it's like, well, I'm not even going to mess with this because it'll show up later. Like you said, 5 months later, what you're looking for shows up where it was supposed to be. So I went and I bought another oxygen sensor socket. I went to put it back, and the one that I had been looking for in that exact same place was sitting there waiting for me. So we're glad to be out of that one.
Yeah. Well, I never got back some stuff that I lost.
I imagine I just got to the point where if I couldn't find it, I bought another one. I've got so many duplicate of a specific wrench now that I can open up my own automotive hardware store with the stuff that I quit fighting it. My wife and I quit fighting, hoping, we figured out there was something else going on. We tried doing EVP sessions, and one thing I didn't do was set with my camera. I have a hard drive camera that could have gone my entire sleeping night. And I have to admit, I didn't set it up because I wasn't necessarily sure I wanted to see what was going on when I was asleep. I saw enough shadows and enough weird crap in real time. We were moving by then. We knew we weren't going to stay in this place, and for other reasons, and just decided that, screw it. Let the next person that lives here deal with it.
Guess what? I actually have an EVP right now on my phone that was recorded by the Ghost Hunters. Let me play it for you. I don't know if this will come through very well, but I'm going to try.
Put it right next to the microphone.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Probably didn't catch that.
No, it just sounded like dead air.
Try one more time. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. It's worth a shot.
Not coming through at all.
No, not coming through at all.
If you have me back, I'll send you the file in advance.
That would be cool.
That would be very cool.
Go
ahead, Eric.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, well, now that I cut you off, I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, it is okay. What would the EVP, if we could have heard it? What does the EVP sound like it's saying? Or
well, it ain't in English. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Foreign language.
It almost sounds like it's saying mine in like the most demonic voice you can possibly imagine, but I don't know. The ghost hunters had a couple. I forget what the ghost hunting team was called. They were seriously a bunch of amateurs, but they had a friend who was an expert in languages, and he had never heard it before.
Did you find that after the ghost hunters came in and stirred the pot that you had, did it change the nature of what was going on in the house?
I wasn't there. When they came through, that house was empty, so I would only go there very sparingly just to arouse my own curiosity morbidly. So I go there with friends. We'd stay for not very long. But usually when we would go there, something would happen, like something very minor. I mean, it was never anything like super violent. When we were there, my mom got a table thrown at her.
Oh, Jesus. Almost like...
That was like when they were moving out.
Oh, like a little tantrum because how dare you leave us?
Yeah, pretty much.
We got a little of that when we moved out. There was... we had started moving because it was just my wife and I. She's disabled, so mostly all the heavy lifting and all, she could pack, but as far as toting boxes and all that fell on me, and we knew we were going to move to this house months before we did, so we got started. We filled a storage unit up with crap, and it still took a month to move.
Did you knowingly move into a haunted house?
No. The one we moved into, what's funny is we had seen other houses the day. We had seen, we saw this one. And the minute I pulled into the driveway, I just had this overwhelming feeling of welcome. There was something about this house that, I knew right then and there, okay, this is the one we're gonna take. And we even found a little toolbox in a drawer somebody had left behind that had the exact types of fuses I needed to fix something that was wrong with the truck I was there in. So I'm like, holy crap, look at this. This is a good sign. They want us. But over the course of the 10 years we lived in that house, things got steadily worse. And it got to the point where my wife, I work nights, I would come home and every light in the house would be on. She just, would not sleep. And she would not sleep with lights off in that house unless I was there. And she's more sensitive than I am. I can pick up empathic stuff, but she could actually see apparitions in that house. I saw a shadow creature form once, and that was I chalked that up to was it middle of the night where my eyes playing tricks on me. But she also later on she said, "Yeah, we've got this dark shadow thing that comes up." So.
Mm-hmm. Erica, it's time for us to wrap this up. Evan, Kail, great guest tonight, my friend. Sir. Thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor. Tell everybody where they can get your book and what's up next for you on your YouTube channel.
Sure. The book is called Ubered, My Life as a Rideshare Driver. It is available now on the Amazon Kindle bookstore. It is currently only digital. You can read the first chapter for free. If you check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/EvanKail, there's all kinds of links to it. I've done some videos about the book, fun stories, stuff like that. As far as the YouTube channel goes, I guess I'll be recording a video and putting it out this week, but I haven't even recorded it yet, so I couldn't tell you what it will be about. There's also going to be a commercial for my book, which I filmed this past week, that'll be coming out on my channel this coming week. It's pretty raunchy. I'd love for you guys listening to check it out. So follow me there. Follow me Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Evan Kail. I post all the time. I'm also pretty into photography, so for those Instagram fans, do check me out.
My friend, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. You and Eric, hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Spaced Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, rocking us right out. He takes us in and brings us home every single episode. We thank Mr. Bumblefoot for that. Remember, you can catch this show and others on our YouTube channel, on TuneIn, and you can download them on iTunes. We want to thank everyone for listening this week. We're going to do it again on Monday, but first we got to get through the weekend. Uncle Jimbo and Elizabeth take over the cabin. I'm out of here. My bag is packed. I'm heading off into the mountains. Got my snow boots on, my gloves, my toque. Not a beanie, America. It's a toque. We're out of here. Have a good one.